Hey,
Hello.
Hey, how you doing? We're jumping straight in live. So I was just rambling with everyone on X and YouTube,
Ah,
just having some fun for the last while. So I heard you were having internet trouble.
yes, my internet went out. Let's see, about 4.5 hours ago,
Oh
and
no!
only just now came back on.
Oh, that's brutal. Yeah, Murphy's Law, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I was like, oh man, I'm totally missing it. The very first interview, it's not gonna work. Oh, but
All good. Yeah,
all
it
right.
was one of those nights anyway because Isaac, was busy. Something came up, so might be able to. Well, I think at this point it's safe to say Isaac's not going to be here. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, so just us anyway. So it was already one of those days where things were coming up, and so it was good. Just the two of us. I figured more relaxed, just have some fun, and we've got some people
Quick,
here still. I think got
quick
Mike
question.
Mullen. Yeah,
I got some fans and stuff going in the background. How is that for noise wise?
it's subtle, but it's not loud. I don't find it distracting.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. If
That's it.
anything, I
All
think
right.
I heard it initially, and now I don't catch it at all. So
Oh,
maybe the
awesome.
system,
Okay.
accommodated for it. But yeah, I think we're good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so welcome to all caps, a bit more casual. I might have to switch things around because we're on a different chat than the original studio. So I'll add our thumbnail for you to this video after the fact, and we'll make sure people know this is where to find you for your interview. And
Okay. Okay.
I'll add your links below. Yeah, but thanks for coming on. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
yeah, and I
My
mean, so
very
tell
first
us.
novella, so I'm really excited to talk about it.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say it just came out. So the Dread is the name, right? And it just came out
Yeah,
what, last week?
on the fourth
On the
last week.
4th.
Yeah,
That's awesome. Yeah, let me open up some notes here.
came out.
Um,
It came out. Let's see, on digital PDF, on Kindle, paperback, and hardcover on the 4th.
Very nice. Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so I was seeing that was the one thing about you that stood out right away is it's not just with this one book, um, but it feels like you're attached to this whole empire of publishing with comics, and now you're a novella, and you've got Omen and Revelations publications. So I kind of want to
Right.
dive into things like that.
Okay.
But with the Dread, I mean, we need to give that its heavy due because it looks like a fun read. Looks like a very fun read. So can you just tell us a bit about the plot and what readers can expect from it?
Let's see a bit about the plot. I am really crappy at doing this without spoilers, so I'm going to
True of
give
us
this
all.
a shot there. Okay, so basically, this it takes place in the 26th century, and it takes place on a space station called the Newer Space Station. Um, it has a semi basic setup for the universe. There was an Earth war, and then a shockwave decimated the surface, and people had to leave the planet, and so now we've kind of spread out across the solar system, and the Newer Space Station finds itself positioned between Earth and Mars. Now,
Mm, okay.
on this is a very cyberpunk type of setting. We're talking about people got to have implants just to survive. It's very dystopian. I mean, class warfare and domestic terrorism is
Mm,
just a common thing in this place. And I mean, the it goes from all the way of, like, imagine peak life, peak success for what someone would imagine at the very top levels, and then you get down towards the very bottom levels of this thing, and the lower you get, the crazier it gets, the more
mm,
lawless it gets, the more dangerous it gets. And so it's into this setting that we find the characters in our story. uh, the main character, Detective John Pearson, finds himself having this dream. It's a nightmare that it is so vivid that
mm,
it seems real. Like he can feel the bead of sweat coming down the side of his head and stinging his eye. He can smell the piss and the vomit on the roof. I mean, this feels like real. This is not just your average dream. And he wakes up
mm.
and he's like, well, maybe I don't know if that was a dream or not. But what happens is it ends up placing this dread deep in his gut that just kind of eats at him. And as this, yep, and that's where we get the name from.
Okay.
Add to this complication, he is currently suffering from insomnia.
And
And
I want to get
partner,
into that. Not right now, but after, yeah. Remind me to get that better if we don't.
His partner wakes him up one morning, and it turns out that he is the prime suspect in a serial murder case. It's a bit of it's a hard-boiled story in a sci-fi type of setting, but it's got a Lovecraftian twist to it and a cyberpunk edge.
Okay. Yeah, see, I love that description when I first saw it. And so I wanted to ask, first of all, because Lovecraftian horror stood out, because I write more fantasy, but I love good horror.
Nice.
There we go. Yeah, and Lovecraftian is so interesting because there are different facets. There's the unknown terror element of this huge cataclysmic monster that is almost never seen, and then there's the madness and the self-doubt and and I kind of got the hint that maybe that was the way you went, but I'm curious. So when you say Lovecraftian, what does that mean in your story?
I mean, actually, both of the things that you mentioned there, and a little bit more. I specifically chose a Lovecraftian edge on this, not because I am a huge Lovecraft fan. I'm not actually. Not that I don't like it. I just I haven't read the stuff. It is all, and so most of my initial influence to Lovecraft came from playing the Call of Cthulhu 7th edition role playing game. That's where my initial what do you call it? When I first got introduced to it came in. But the things that I liked about it was, one, the fear of the unknown, and that it was not just fear but madness attached to that.
Yeah.
One of the things I like to explore as a writer is, where does the line between sanity end and insanity begin? One of my characters makes this comment in the book. He says, there's a person can say one thing, and to this group of people, it is considered wisdom. To another group of people, those exact same words are considered absolutely insane. Which one knows the truth? And I love to explore that, and that's one of the elements I liked about it. So that's what I mean by Lovecraftian. But I also mean in the book Call of Cthulhu from 1920, Lovecraft story, there is an old religion that built up around Cthulhu. And so in this universe, I have decided that this ancient religion still exists. So a knowledge of the great old ones exists as a culture. People use like the phrase, like, by the great old ones, man. Are you serious? Like they make it's part of the culture.
Okay, so there's a very direct Lovecraftian influence there.
Yes, but you see what I mean? How it's what you said, and then a little bit more. Yeah.
Because well, that was the other thing that stood out to me. So I mean, we can. I have a few questions, like quicker ones, or just casual, having fun about the sci-fi element, the cyberpunk. But what really stood out to me that I'd love to just dive into a little bit was the insomnia and the madness, because that is a theme. I mean, you said like that Lovecraftian horror side. Insomnia in horror really intrigues me, because I've been noticing it. I'd say more and more, but some examples I thought of are older. Insomnia by, directed by Christopher Nolan comes to mind, but then The Babadook, if you've ever seen it, very prominent, very, very famous. Not my favorite horror movie, but I thought it did a good job handling insomnia in particular, and that madness and how the horror actually was. And well, was it real, or was it just madness? Did it come from, like, because sleep deprivation does really messed up things to the human brain. And I think most people who haven't experienced it don't know, So it's fun when horror captures it.
I do know about that
Yeah.
firsthand, in fact. So
Yep.
I just kind of tapped into that. One of the reasons I wanted Insomnia is again to feed into that unknown. You know, like a lot of this book is about exploring, okay, what exactly is real and what isn't. What is truth and what is the lie? What is you get. I give you some definite answers. Don't get me wrong. I don't leave you hanging throughout the whole thing, but questioning this is kind of the point.
Yeah, those are fun stories. I definitely don't mind questioning it throughout, and even if there's still some open ends at the end, as long as there's some resolution, it can be a very fun experience.
Right. I don't put it all together at the end, and part of that was genre. It's hard boiled. Hard boiled stories often don't end with everything all tied up in a nice little bow. You know what I mean? And Lovecraft stories often don't end that way as well. And so it was that is part of trying to get into the genre. I had a friend describe me as a genre writer recently.
Huh. Well, which is interesting considering this is you're getting into the genre, but you're also blending genres. So that's tough because then you have to, if you are a genre writer, you're blending those norms from multiple, and you almost have to please multiple differing audiences. That's an interesting challenge. Do you find that hard, or I guess you'll find out now that it's out, right?
I want to say this, but it somehow when it starts to come out of my mouth, it sounds conceited or something. But I put a lot of work into making sure that I covered those bases. I made sure that people were into it for this, found those elements in it. People that were into it for this found those elements in it. But what I'm getting from a lot of people feedback wise is that people that don't like hardboiled like the story. People that don't like sci-fi like the story. People that know nothing about Lovecraft like the story. People that aren't necessarily horror fans like the story. It seems to the genre blending seems to work across the board there,
which is even more fun considering it's a novella, so it's a little more bite-sized than a full novel, right? So you can
7 chapters. Yep.
Nice, yeah. Well, and that's even tougher though if you're blending that much quality content into that small space. Did you find that a challenge? Yeah, and how long? I'm curious. How long did the writing process take for a novella?
Well, it took me about 2 years.
Okay, yeah.
But to be fair, that wasn't all writing time.
Yeah.
I think if we're talking about, because I'm also writing other stuff and I'm doing other things, and so there's life, and it just took me a little longer. But I want to say if we're just talking about straight writing time, I'm going to say maybe 8 months.
Fair.
To get it written, and then another few months to edit it and stuff.
Okay, yeah. No, that's a decent pace. Now you said, speaking of other writing, and I'm curious how this ties into fiction writing. I believe I saw that you are a full-time writer, right? So I'm curious what that other writing is, and then I'm curious how that, is it hard to shift between one form of writing and another? Diving into your novella, and I believe comics is another thing you do, right?
I did do comics. I don't do them anymore.
Fair.
And we can get into that if you'd like.
We'll get there.
Essentially, comics was my first love. I wrote my very first comic when I was 12 years old.
Very cool.
It was extremely derivative. Okay,
but that's also not all, but yeah.
But I knew I wanted to write. I knew I wanted to write comics, and I got into it. And quite frankly, if I could afford to keep doing it, I mean, when you talk about paying an artist for a 20-page book, you're looking at spending and this is dirt cheap prices, $3,000.
Yep.
dirt cheap prices. Okay, and that's not something I could
Yeah.
sustain. And unfortunately, I'm a better writer than I am a salesman. And so I had issues with Kickstarters and stuff, and
Yeah, fair.
Comics wasn't something I could do anymore. And so the other books I'm talking about is taking the Omen verse, like the stories like with Omen and Gallowsman and White Druid of Michael Nero and all that kind of stuff. And I'm transferring those over into novellas and
Very
stuff.
cool.
And I'm several chapters into both. And I'm currently also working on specifically another horror called Seder. It's a Viking horror.
I saw that that's a Viking horror.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, see, and there I want to get into it too, just the entire Omen verse, that you have going on. Because again, it was the first thing Isaac and I noticed when we were looking you up and realizing there's a lot going on here. There's this whole network that you're attached to and your own publications. And now I believe I saw Omen verse is yours, and then was it Revelations that you co-founded with
Revelation Publication,
Yeah.
yes.
That was with
Co-founded with Steve Sellers.
Yeah, Steve Sellers. That was it. And
sorry.
Well, I was going to ask. He was one of your editors, right? Did I see that correctly for the Dread?
Yes, he was. Yes, he was.
So you had two editors, right?
Yeah. You know. Let me tell you what.
I'm curious. I want to hear
this. Might seem redundant. This might seem redundant to some people, but okay. I've noticed personally that when I'm like trying to edit my own writing, I know what I was trying to say in my head, right? I know exactly how I wanted to phrase it. And sometimes my eyes will actually play a trick on me that I will actually see what I intended to write and just read it that way instead of actually seeing what's actually on the page. And so that requires me to get at least one editor. And I said, you know what? What if that one editor starts doing that with my book, after going after it 10 or 15 times? Maybe I had to get a second editor just in case that editor gets fatigued too.
That's fair.
That's
even what beta readers are normally for is if you can't afford multiple editors, you can still get, multiple people to read through it and see if different feedback comes, because it's not even just fatigue. It's we all also have our own, as readers and writers and editors, we have our own strengths, our areas where we're more likely to catch mistakes, but we'll miss others. And someone else will not have our strength, but they'll catch those things we missed, and so on and so forth. So many eyes do help for sure. So both of them performed kind of the same type of editing?
No.
Okay.
How do I go about that? I am like, I'm going to say I'm about maybe high school level with my grammar. So I tend to, while I'm really good at crafting a story and putting story elements together, my grammar is not necessarily all that great. So one of them was going over grammar, and the assistant editor, he actually he spent the apparently in the first time he went over in the first drafts, I apparently used the word that excessively.
Fair, yeah.
I had no idea I was doing that. So I mean, they did it both with the grammatical stuff and also as a reader kind of stuff, and I wanted all of that.
So kind of a blend of copy editing and stylistic editing that, and I like that because I'm the same. When I first started exploring that side of editing and realizing, little things like the excessive ofs and of thes and the that's and little things that you can trim without losing meaning, that gives a lot more flow, and it just is less to read, and it makes sentences flow a little easier off the page. And you just wouldn't think of it from just a casual learning experience, growing up through normal high school systems or even university. Heck, in university, you want to hit.
I did actually take creative writing at Eugene Bible College in Oregon.
Oh, fun. Okay. How was that? I mean, I went to Bible college too, but I never took creative writing, so I'm very curious.
Well, I mean, it's not a focus of the school,
Mm.
but the class itself was pretty good. I will say this. My teacher would hand out assignments and she'd say, like, I need a minimum of 5 pages on this. And then she'd look over at me and she'd say, Mike, no more than 7 pages.
Okay. Well,
yeah, because you get me on a topic, I've been on podcasts, I can go on about some stuff.
Sounds like writer was the right avenue for you then, though.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yes. And honestly, a lot of the dread that I did for myself in those couple of years was trimming it down. There was a lot of stuff that I put in there for flavor, for world building, and some of it just came across as info dumps and that kind of thing. So I mean, it was polishing it down. But like when I first created this world, I had I want to say a good 10-15 pages just on the world setting itself without getting into characters.
Have you ever this is just me, but it's what I get nervous about. I bounce back and forth between extremes. So have you ever you realize something you put in feels like fluff, it feels like an info dump that you maybe don't need, and so you cut it because and maybe someone else suggested you should cut it, and you thought, oh yeah, you know what, you're right, this is too much. And then you go back later and you realize, oh no, I did need that. It was a scent. Have you ever done that? Because I definitely have. I sometimes get overzealous in my cutting, and then I go from too concise to too extravagant and back and forth like a yo-yo. That's is it just me? I don't know.
I have done that, but not so much. I'll tell you something. I read the well, not all of them, about 5.5 Harry Potter books recently.
Okay.
And okay, there was Rowling has the ability. She basically taught me what show don't tell means.
Yeah.
And I didn't quite understand the concept until I saw how she did things. And so going over my stuff, then I saw how I was doing a lot of telling and not showing. Rather than just having characters interact with the environment, I was giving them a paragraph describing the world first. Then there was, just little things where I just went on too long about describing something and little stuff like that. But there wasn't a whole lot of having to go back and say, oh, wait a minute, I actually needed that and I gotta go back, because I meticulously went over it before I cut it out. I'm like, is there any way I can use any of this? And I'm like,
I see.
And sometimes I will even cut. Yeah, so sometimes I will actually even cut out a section and paste it on another document and go back to it later and see, like, hey, can I use this anywhere?
Can you plug it in somewhere else?
I do kind of do it like that. Yeah.
Yeah. See, that's, I think, more common is we're attached to our darlings, and especially working in these sorts of big worlds, sci-fi settings, fantasy settings, you get attached to the world building. So you don't want to just you end up wanting to use it, which can make it really easy to do those info dumps. But at the very least, often, if it doesn't work in one spot, it can work in another. And this is where audience matters, because some of our audiences really want that, So how you do it, I think, matters more than if or when. The when and how matters more than if. I think often I've talked to authors or I've talked to maybe some reviewer friends who will say, oh, I hate that kind of world building. And then you see them read a book and review it 5 stars that has exactly that kind of world building, Right. The truth is, there are audiences out there who love these richly built worlds, and if you know that's your audience, then go for it.
I think what I decided was, once the story was completely written, I had all the little the entire thing pathed out. I had all 7 chapters written. I went back over it, and I'm like, okay. Now, is this information? Sure, it's world building. It might be interesting. How does it relate to the story itself? And so I specifically tried to choose things that were not just world building, but I tried to give them. They had to have more purpose than just world building. They had to also have something to do with an event that happens later. Like I play with perspective in the book, where somebody will describe something in one chapter, and then you'll see that from a different perspective in a different spot, and suddenly it fills out the whole thing. Like I brought up this little world building chunk here, and suddenly because of that, you know what he's going through right here, kind of an idea.
So I'm curious then, is your story told from is it a third omnipotent, third or I didn't get to read the sample, so is it first person, third person?
First person. First person with multiple perspectives.
Okay, so that was my next question. Is it multi POV then? Yeah. Okay, that's fun. How many character POVs do we get?
Well, you get one present tense POV and then one looking back POV.
Oh, okay. So split between the two then?
Yes, and I did it that way specifically because of how I wanted to end the book. Okay. It was all about story structure and reveal and how I wanted to lay it out. It was more. That's all the cleverness that was put into it. Really, I'm like, well, if I don't do it this way, the ending doesn't. The story just doesn't hit like I want it to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I mean,
it was like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like even if there are elements of a plot that you fill in as you go, if you like knowing how you want the story to be experienced beginning to end is the main driver. I think it should be the main driver when you're writing. So that's huge. If you know how you want your story to end, and you find the best medium or the best method to make sure it delivers, then go for it. And I talked to someone about this the other day about that tactic. I love it, frankly. I love when you get two perspectives on the same event told in a story. Some people say that's a bit repetitive, but if you're adding new information on top of it, it's great. And like it sounds like you're doing with the past and present, so you have a limited view of what happened and then a fleshed out view with a lot more detail and a lot more answers given and more nuance, right? I love that because it's
definitely
part of the pleasure of multi POV, right? Is fleshing out from multiple angles the same thing, and in a detective context, that must be extra fun.
Well, I got to tell you, I went first person for multiple reasons. One, hard-boiled stories are typically told first person.
Fair.
But, and this is an experience thing. Say, how do I say this? If I say Ted's hand was shaking with fear and he clenched his fist to stop them, that you understand what happened, you understand what he said. But when I say my hands were shaking with fear and I clenched them to stop it, that puts that you experience that emotion more because of that first person POV.
Yeah. I wrestle with that one. I do, and I love both. I've loved books by with both and present tense, past tense, first person, third person. It's so if you know the vibe you're going for, you're not wrong. You put yourself into the head of the narrator more if it's a direct narration, if it's first person. And sometimes that distance can be useful though in third. So I do wrestle sometimes with stories. I wrestled with whether or not to do the novella I'm working on now in first, and I ultimately still decided on third. But I see so many examples of first done well that I really wrestle with. Maybe someday, maybe a next book. It's interesting.
Honestly, I'm not sure. Well, I really like the first person narrative. I'm not sure it fits with every genre. Like for instance, I started reading the Percy Jackson and the Olympians books, right?
Yep.
I wanted to check those out, and it is told in first person.
Yep.
And so I don't know, for some reason the fantasy genre told in first person, it felt out of place.
Yeah. When I maybe if I had read those when I was younger, I would have liked them, but I
Right?
came to them way too late, and I had the same experience. It didn't do it for me.
Ah,
It was okay, but I agree. It didn't fit. I think you're right. I think maybe genre preference applies. And I've read first person fantasy that was good, but
ah.
that one, yeah, Percy Jackson, something about it fell a bit flat. I think you're right. Yeah,
Yeah,
so that's
I really
interesting.
wanted to like it because I'm a huge mythology guy.
Yeah,
I've been into mythology since I first watched Jason and the Argonauts. We're talking the original one,
mm,
and Clash of the Titans, from
yeah,
1981.
yeah,
Both of those just turned me right on to mythology, and so I went to
yeah.
both my public library and the library of my school, and I just devoured every book I could come across that had legends and fables and mythology and the whole 9 yards in it. In fact, the superhero horror universe that I built, the Omenverse,
Mm.
is based on an amalgamation of mythology.
Very cool. Okay, and I want to get to the superhero part of that a bit, not just because what immediately came to mind when I saw that superhero horror was the movie Brightburn, which I saw somewhat recently. Have you
Right?
seen that one? Um,
I've not gotten to it, no, but
okay,
I basically got the from what I know about it, it's basically what if Superman was evil kind of an idea.
yeah, and it's not for everybody. It's pretty intense at parts, but I thought it
Right?
was masterful. And I did. I don't always watch horror or read horror, but I do enjoy it. So that was a
Uh,
nice. That hit my horror. It gave me my horror hit for a while because it was just it hit all the right notes for me. Um, but back to mythology really quick. Here's another. Have you read or seen this? Have
okay.
you read or listened to the audiobooks for it's Stephen Fry. He came out with two books all about Greek mythology. And so one of them, I believe it was called Mythos. I know the second one I think was just called Heroes. Um, but does that sound familiar at all? Have you checked those out? If not,
I don't
it
think I
sounds to me
have.
like they'd be up your alley. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, like if you ever heard Stephen Fry, I love his voice. He has an amazing voice. And so he narrated them, after having written them himself. The writing alone, they're extremely well written. And it's just retellings of Greek mythology. And it's really, really well done. And then hearing it in
Oh,
his own
like
voice.
kind of like what Neil Gaiman did with Norse mythology, that kind of an
Yes.
idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So like it's yeah, retelling, but not like he gives it that a fictional vibe, but he still throws in some facts here and there. So it's kind of a blend. It's not quite. It feels like a nonfiction read, but it doesn't feel like a textbook. Like it's a very fun, engaging experience. So it's just if you kind of drink in that sort of
Right.
storytelling
Yeah. No,
and
I'll check it out.
mythology, yeah, highly recommend.
I do
I
gotta
was shocked.
I do gotta comment something though while we're on the subject of mythology.
Yeah.
Uh Detective John Pearson is not your average hard-boiled detective.
Okay.
He is actually he's for the most part self-educated, but
Mm,
classically educated. So you will find references in the Dread to Odysseus. You will
okay.
find
Yeah.
references to Paradise Lost. You will
Yeah.
find you will find the meditations of Marcus Aurelius. There are, I mean,
Yeah.
I have a love for this classic stuff, and I kind of dumped that into this character a bit.
Mm.
And
Well, that's
plus, I
fun. That's
really,
kind of refreshing.
I one of the things I have a personal love for and fit really nicely with Pearson's analytical style is philosophy. There's a
Mm.
lot of existential philosophy being pondered here.
Okay. Interesting. Yes, that's even more fit into a very small space. That's fun. That's yeah, it sounds like a very full novella, which is, you know, all the more a feat. Again, I say this because I was talking to someone about short stories and the challenges of condensing so many elements into a short space. And I think that's true for novellas too. They're a little longer, I mean, or a lot longer, but still, compared to a 500-page novel, you have to do a lot more in much less space. So if you're throwing in deep themes and philosophy and drawing from the classics, you know, to build a character, which I love, as opposed to a more uh, purely pure detective work and rational and technology based, especially in a cyberpunk setting, you would expect a heavier reliance on technology. So a character with a classics orientation, very interesting in that setting.
Well, in particular, eh, um, I described this a little bit in the book, and I told you I'm really bad about giving spoilers here, but um, the every how I viewed it was, imagine if you will, that Earth was made unlivable, that we no longer, that we were basically became a planetless people.
Yeah.
We had to go find other places to live. So in my head, in order to have a sense of continuity as a people, they have this fascination with old Earth's past.
I like that.
They like to name things in the newer station after things on old Earth. Detective Pearson has a collection of old Earth digital books and movies.
That's fun. What are some of his favorite movies?
Well, what are some of his favorite movies? Wow. Okay. Well, I can tell you this, that he's gonna typically go for the noir type films. He does like those.
Yep.
He likes the tough guy type movies. Nice. I'm gonna say he would like movies like say Seven. I'm gonna say that he probably like even old ones like the Maltese Falcon, little Sam Spade action, right?
Yep.
But action as well. So I mean, I can picture him doing, you know, like probably 80s action in general. So we're probably talking, you know, like maybe Rambo or the Terminator or something like that.
Fun.
You like that kind of stuff?
Have you met, just because he calls it a noir action, or that was the inspiration, and then it's sort of branched off into its own thing. But have you encountered Nick Horvath in the author space at all? Sledge?
I have not. No.
Okay, yeah. So maybe look up on X after, because I think you'd enjoy it. Yeah, Sledge by Nick Horvath. Which is really a fun tribute to that sort of action. So it just came to mind as something that matches. Anyways, just a fun little action flick of a book.
But basically I'm kind of going off my main inspirations for the Dread as far as movies go. We are talking about like Seven was a big inspiration, particularly in that imagine, if you will, if Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman's characters did not meet at the end of Morgan Freeman's character's career when he was retiring. Say they met early on, and the relationship that would have been built out of that.
Fair.
And so that's kind of how I view that. But when I picture Pearson in my mind, I see Brad Pitt. When I picture McCullough in my mind, I see Morgan Freeman.
Okay, and he's trying to clear him. Yeah, I love that. Oh, okay, that's very fun, because I mean that's a loaded movie on a lot of different levels, and for a detective. Yeah. Oh, I like that. I like that parallel. That's very fun. That's very, very fun, especially in a cyberpunk setting with that madness and horror, and with the intrigue and the framing element. And yeah, okay. Again, a lot going on. That's wild. I love it. I love hearing about
one of the biggest things that I'm hearing about it is that people that don't like these genres still like it. I don't, and that's what's weird about it. As
Fair.
I intended to blend the genres, but I still expected it to fit into this niche group, and it
Yeah.
seems to be going. It seemed other people seem to like it.
Well, there does seem to be a call these days for blends. You know, cookie cutter
Mm,
genre pieces. Uh, it's not that they don't seem to be doing as well. It's just the fads for them come and go very quickly. So if you don't
right.
catch those waves, you're kind of screwed. Whereas these blends seem to be doing better. That's just been
Huh.
my impression, just from talking to a lot of authors now, and just even my own experience. You know, my like a little sci-fi and fantasy blend seems to hit home for a lot of people, even more than I expected. I kind of, same as you, had that niche expectation, and maybe grow from
Ah,
there and test the waters. And I was surprised. I was like, oh, okay, more people don't
nice.
mind. Yeah, anyways, but and then there will be the naysayers who will be like, okay, I thought this was cookie cutter, detective story, and now you're throwing this at me, and you just brush those off because, like you said, you're going to get so many people who are going to say, I shouldn't like this, but I do, and that's got to be a very fun feeling.
Yeah, that feels that was one of the two of the things I got feedback wise that really made me feel good about it. Friend William Lineberger told me that I write in such a way that he can feel what the character is feeling.
Hmm.
That that I, that that one got me right in the feels. I was like,
Yeah,
"Holy shit, man!"
that's what you want.
But
Definitely what you
yeah,
want.
yeah, yeah, and then let's see. I totally forgot the second one.
Well, while you're thinking
Yeah,
about it,
I lost it. Lost it. Sorry about that.
all good. Well, but it jogged something for me because I
Yeah.
was going to ask, and it
Okay.
slipped. But speaking of second one, is this a standalone, or is there a potential for a continuation of the story?
It is a standalone story.
Okay, yeah, yeah, because I know you'd mentioned other things you're already moving on to, like the Seder uh, Viking horror. But yeah, I was curious. I was curious if this is meant as an introduction to a world or very much a standalone. Yeah.
No, and I will say that the the world building is such that there is more room in this. There is more room for stories in this world that I created.
Hmm.
I just none that I have any to tell.
Fair.
I could see another author coming along and saying, "Well, I like this world. I could tell a story in here." I could see something like that going on, but I just had this one story, this one idea that I had to get out, and that's what
Fair.
the dread is.
I like that. Yeah. No need to linger on. Well, I mean, and it sounds like you have a lot more on the go too. Um, yeah, very cool. What else did I want to ask about that too? I mean, we touched on a bit of the cyber, well, we touched on the horror and the insomnia, but I think you hit on most of the sci-fi. But I'm curious, any challenges then? In the world building, but just in general, right? Obviously writing 600 years in the future, roughly. Um, did you face any challenges in capturing that and making it feel believable? Uh,
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know how else to put that. Yeah, like,
Um, I this was this the dread was originally going to be a comic book, and
hmm,
I turned it into a novella. But I don't know. Have you ever written a comic script?
I've written or read.
Written a comic
Written,
script?
no, I haven't. I haven't written a script. No.
Okay. Well, you basically each panel the writer puts a description of what they want in the panel.
Mm,
Okay, and most writers will say something generic like uh space station, few ships flying by, something just very generic, and the artist just kind of goes with it.
yeah.
I literally wrote a page and a half describing what I was doing in the first panel.
Huh.
I broke this. When I say I created the space station, I mean down to the nuts and bolts. I
No.
mean, like, I know how they deal with trash. I know how they deal with food. I know how they keep the air clean. I made this a lived-in place, and actually, my inspiration for this detail and world building comes from Tolkien. While I think Tolkien, I don't mimic Tolkien as a writer, but I do like his world building.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, the guy created this entire lived-in, breathing world, and then put a story into it, and that's what I like to do.
Very cool. Yeah, that's and not always easy, and especially for a small space, and especially if you're not planning to use it again. But okay, something I wanted to make sure I hit on. So the illustrator for the cover, Brian Wilson, right? Do I have that right?
Yep.
Probably not to be confused with Brian
Beach
Wilson.
Boy. No,
sorry,
it's not the Beach Boy. No,
not the Beach Boy. Or there's a few. There's the Beach Boy. There's Brian Wilson, the author of Forsaken Planet. There's a whole other indie series that's out there. Yeah. Anyway, it's a great guy too. But it's just what I thought when I saw that name. But this is interesting. With comic script writing, you're writing essentially briefs, right? So I'm curious how that process then went for your cover, because I hear the same thing from illustrators all the time. They'll say, oh, they'll show examples of the brief they got, and it'll be a few sentences from an author being like, oh, just give me such, and it's very generic, and this cover designer comes up with a masterpiece that fits perfectly, but just how did they get to that from that, So how did that look like for you then, having experience with scripts, working with your illustrator?
Well, like I'm
going to flip to the cover really quick, because I do have it here.
Okay.
There we go.
This particular, what ended up being the cover, this was actually going to be the first page of the comic.
That's fun. So this is what had that huge page of description.
Yeah, and so I described that this space station you see in detail back there was described in absolute detail. Like I said, I didn't just do generic space station and back. I described how things work in case he wanted to know how something might look from the outside. I described where, the actual area that they're going to be standing in. I when I say down to the nuts and bolts, I mean down to the nuts and bolts. This first panel had like a page and a half description in it.
That's awesome.
And that's without the dialogue or the thoughts that I had going on in there.
Yeah. So you can imagine how much writing would have went into even just the full comic script.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's still a lot of work. So it must, I don't know. So I think I saw, so you said you previously worked on, was it seven comics that you wrote, and then 4 that you either co-authored or scripted?
Right.
So I'm curious, how at the end of the day, once all things were done with the novella, how did the experience compare to, particularly to the ones you either fully scripted or fully wrote, the comics?
Well, I guess put quite simply, putting out comics is like putting out a chapter of a story.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, and I was able to put out maybe 1 or 2 comics a year.
Oh, fair. And like you said, the cost is probably a big part of that, right?
Right. Yeah. And so, quite frankly, one of the things I initially just love about writing novellas, I get to finish the story.
Yeah.
Plus, I found that I am more adept at writing novellas or just prose in general than I am at writing comics. Like I started to get good, I think, at writing comics. I'm nowhere near great, but I started to get at least decent at writing comics. But I feel in just the first a couple of months of writing a novella, I don't know how to describe it. It felt freeing.
Hmm.
Like I'd finally found this is the format I'm supposed to be writing in, kind of a thing. And plus, this is the format that prose is what I was trained in college. So yeah.
So it's kind of a return to what you had originally been trained in anyway. So yeah, that must be liberating. So is the plan? Here, I'm going to flip this back. Is the plan then? I mean, it sounded like Seder was going to be another novella. Is the plan novellas for the foreseeable future? Do you have any longer novels in mind?
Well, here's the thing: I don't write stories with the length in mind.
Ah, fair. Okay.
So I mean, I'm saying novellas because, like, for instance, The Dread would have been a novel had I written another chapter. It's about 8,000 words short.
So about, yeah, okay, yeah. So I mean, probably 30, 32, 3,300 kind of thing. Or sorry, 32,000, I assume. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So it had I just written another chapter, it'd be a novel. But this is the thing: it wouldn't have the flow. It wouldn't have the punch that it had if I had thrown that in there just because I wanted novel length.
Yeah.
I want a story to work for the story's sake, and I'll just worry about whether it's a novel or novella later. It's secondary.
Fair. Yeah, fair. I wrestle with that. I do because, when I first published, I published shorter books, but they were a little over that edge, so they were full novels. And in hindsight, I think they would have worked better as novellas. I think I did maybe push them a bit over that edge, and yet, it was in an epic fantasy context. So I had some people saying this is great, but maybe shorter as a novella would have worked, and I had other people saying no, this needed to be much longer, which I ended up doing. I put all three together and published them like that. So like maybe it depends on audience too.
That's a really hard call when you're talking about fantasy.
Yeah,
fantasy by definition needs a bit of telling. Yeah. If you're just doing showing in fantasy, they're not getting a sense of the world, and like the world either has to be familiar enough that you don't have to go into it, or you're going to have to go into it in a fantasy setting. Those are the only options, really.
Yeah. See, and I think you've hit on something there, is that a lot of us in our training, whether formal training, which we've both had in creative writing, or just from what we hear in the writing community and in basic advice and in books you might read on the craft, that emphasis on show don't tell sometimes pushes us away. And I think I definitely went too far to the show heavy side, because to my surprise, but for the exact reasons you are saying now, some of the feedback I got early on was, you need to, like, I want more exposition. That's what people were saying. Right. And like, not a small amount of it, they wanted more. And this is from people who also say, this is a very rich world. It's very complex. There's a lot in it, and there's a lot going on. I want more. So it's kind of the best feedback you could get as a fantasy author who has this world playing around in his head. But I tried so hard to, trim it. And I think you're right. So yeah, like, genre plays a big part here for sure.
I think there's a balance in there somewhere. Yeah. You know what I mean? That going too far one way or the other is the wrong way, but somewhere in the middle there.
Yeah.
It's like with movies, when you're talking about special effects. Now, CGI is great, right? But practical effects is also very nice, right? But the combination is the CGI and the practical effects. There is a perfect balance to things, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Enough that neither feels enough that you don't feel like the whole thing was CGI. Enough that you mistake the CGI for real. That's what I want. Enough real effects that the CGI feels real too, and enough CGI that I can actually believe we're in a different context than just the real. Anyways, you get it. Yeah.
Also, I like that. I heard somebody say, I want to say I read this on X, but somebody said, I know when I've read a good book, because when it's over, I feel like it stopped too soon. I wanted more. And that was a sign of a good book. And I think that's the same thing with exposition. You
Fair.
want to lead, you want to tell just enough so that they're able to get an idea, they're able to see it, but there's a line.
Yeah. Well, you hit on it earlier too, because that is a huge balance to strike as well, because you do want to give them enough that they're not mad at you, and some of that will just be naysayers who don't like cliffhangers, and but you don't want to abuse that. You want to give them, yeah, you want them to have loved the world enough that they wanted to keep going, but you want them to be satisfied with the story.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
that's tough. It's a tough balance to strike. It's a fun balance to strike, but yeah, all these little things we learn as we go. I think, um, unless you're a prodigy right out of the gate, part of the fun of this experience is you put in the time and the work, and you make sure you give your story its due. But with feedback, you're always going to find new ways that you could improve, and you apply them next time, and then you find more ways to, and you keep going. But storytellers evolve as much as their stories. So
I think that's why Da Vinci talked about art never being truly finished; it is only abandoned. And
yeah,
I think the reason is because we're going to evolve as writers. We're, as we write each book, as we grow, things are going to change. Things are going to evolve, and so therefore we're going to look back on old work and say, "Well, that looks like crap now," because we're at the stage beyond that now, and that's why at some point a work has to be abandoned because of that. I don't know. I guess that's what different editions are for.
yeah, true. Yeah. Although it's funny because that can be that I've seen some indie authors pull it off, so I have to get around the mechanics of that. Because traditional publishers can just put out new editions whenever they want, it
Right.
seems. But indie authors, for example, on Amazon, you more or less have to unpublish and republish, and you lose all your reviews, right? When you put out the new edition. Um, so you're almost starting from scratch. So that's why a lot of authors won't. They'll just
Yeah.
leave what they put up the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the downside. The one of the downsides I've seen to going indie is that the system does kind of punish you for it by making it. You can add small corrections. You can upload a second file with smaller things corrected. But if you want
Right.
to add anything or revise anything or change the story in any way with a new edition, you would have to unpublish and essentially put out a new one.
And
I just
losing
saw an
all those
author do it
reviews
though.
would suck.
Sorry?
And losing all those reviews would suck
Yeah.
because reviews aren't easy to get.
No, they are not. No. So I just saw an author essentially do that. Yeah, Michael Mitchell. I just mentioned him earlier
Yeah.
while I was on, and he did that with The Price of Power book, which was a very well reviewed. I think it either was. I don't know if it was a SPIFBO champion, but it got pretty high up there. At the very least, I think it was a finalist.
Nice.
And it is a very good book, and it had tons of reviews, and he took it, well, he republished essentially. I think the changes were relatively minor, but he lost all those reviews, so he had to reach out to his networks and just rapid fire ask people to, and luckily people came through. But you have to be very established to I think do that successfully. You have to really have a loyal audience that you can rely on, and building that is a huge challenge.
Oh yeah. I mostly have I got a circle of about, I don't know, 15 or 20 friends that
Fair, yeah.
that I'm using. That's about that they either were beta readers or something like that, or they got an early copy of the book or something like that. But I mean, I don't know how else you're supposed to get reviews.
Yeah. Well, it starts from that and then it branches out, right? But
Right.
that core group matters a lot. Yeah. And it's a huge help. I mean, 15 is big to start up when you're starting. Having 15 people you can rely on that matters. Some people come in with zero. They have maybe even some beta readers who just wouldn't think twice about ever giving it a review too. So,
well, let me give you a little tip. This is what I did. I play Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
So at least several of the people in the group play Dungeons and Dragons with me.
Yeah,
right?
so
So,
regular exposure.
right?
Yeah, the people you encounter often who
Yeah,
doing something like Dungeons and Dragons, you would hope they would be interested in this sort of story.
right.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. Yeah,
Honestly,
it's.
you
Oh,
got to
sorry.
start with that circle of friends. I mean,
Yeah,
because you have to have other eyes on your book when you first, if you want it to be successful.
yeah, yeah. I see a lot of authors. Oh, who was I just talking? I think at the book launch I was just at. We were talking at this around. So we were talking about this from around. Well, sitting around the table, having some drinks and just having a good time. Really fun launch. But, yeah, I think it was my second in person book launch I've been to, and it was so much fun. Uh,
Nice.
if I have a regret, I did a signing, but I didn't do a proper launch really that way. Next time I would. I might. Anyways, point is, we're talking and they were asking questions, and so this came up. You see a lot of authors who they might have an account, on different platforms, but they haven't done any building. They don't have many friends. They don't have many writer friends giving them critique, and so they put out they finish their first book, and then they start putting themselves out there on social, and on social, media. And the problem there is if you don't have a strong base outside of social media, um, and you haven't built yourself as as a person, as a brand is not, well, brand is kind of the right word, but most people would find it too markety, too salesy.
Right.
So, but I'm going to use, I'm going to say, if you haven't started building a personal presence, that people can relate to and people already like what you have to say, then it's going to be very hard if you just jump in head first selling your book from day one on social media, right? And you see that a lot. You see an author who will create an account on the same day that they publish their book and be like, buy my book. And no one follows them. So no one even sees it. And those who do see it are like, who's this nobody trying to sell their book to me?
I'll tell you what I did. Um, One of the first things I did, I started these things as a means of promoting my comics,
Mm,
and it just kind of built from there.
yeah.
But I did a horror podcast, and
Huh.
so it for some strange reason it was called Countless Corpses Podcast. Went on for a couple of years, and for some reason, YouTube sent me an email saying that, giving me a very generic description, saying that I had violated these rules but didn't tell me when or where, and they
Ugh.
just deleted my account. So that kind of sucked.
Wow.
But I started that podcast. Plus, with Steve Sellers, me and him did another podcast called Omen Revelations Podcast, a mixture of Omen Publications and Revelation Publications, right?
Okay.
And we
Yeah.
talked about pop culture and writing and all kinds of other stuff on there. So I developed a presence through talking about these things and stuff online. And
Yeah.
then with my comics coming out and stuff, that built it slowly. But I went at it from the ground up. I wanted to build it slowly. And
Yeah.
honestly, podcasts are the way to go if you want to
Mm,
get your presence out there.
fair. I mean, that's awesome, and that's the point, though. So again, when I first saw you, when we first started, interacting here and there on X,
Yeah.
uh, and then when it was time to have you on this show, just seeing this established network you already have, that's huge. So you're putting out your first novella, stepping away from comics, but you have the foundation that a lot of authors don't have when they put out their first piece. So that's really awesome to see. It's like you said, it's a long strategy, but I think it's the best one.
Right. This is taking me. I first founded Omen Publications in 2018.
Wow. Yeah. So a solid 7 years. Right.
So I mean, it has taken some time, but
Yeah.
I think it was worth it ultimately.
Fair.
I will tell you it, as Milton put it, long is the way and hard is the road that out of hell leads up to light.
Hmm.
Well, that's what the journey was like getting here, but I
Hmm.
think it was ultimately worth it. Is
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
That's
It, it,
awesome.
it 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 paid off in the end, like you're saying.
Fair. Yeah. That's awesome to see. So yeah, I mean, good luck because it sounds like a really fun story, and again, it feels like you're making all the right moves. So that's very cool.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah, now. Yeah, we're coming up on about an hour or so.
Okay.
About 11 o'clock. I mean, I've still got some time, so if you're good for time, I'm game to. Let me. I wanted to ask a few other things. Well, no, we covered comics. Uh,
I don't got anywhere I gotta be, man.
Fair. Okay. Yeah. So as long as I'm not keeping you too long. Yeah, and true. You're yeah. Where are you? So you're Pacific time, right? So you're on the
Yep.
West Coast.
I'm up in the eastern side of Northern California.
Okay. Okay. Very cool. Yeah, I'm Eastern time in Ottawa, Canada. So bit of a trek there.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. Although I have family out in BC here in Canada, so British Columbia. So same, I believe and I have friends in Vancouver. My family's more northern BC, which is still very lush and very mild climate compared to what you'd expect. So beautiful place. I love going out west, but the time changes always gets me every time. So yeah.
We may not quite have the we're not quite as cold as you are up there in
Yeah,
in
California,
Canada.
no,
But
even more.
however, I am up at 4,200 feet.
Yeah,
And we have dropped down to, I think the coldest it has gotten here is -5. And I will tell you
Fahrenheit, okay, yeah.
that cold was enough that I had like a couple of layers of clothes on, a jacket, a blanket, and I could still feel the cold coming in through the walls.
Let me do the conversion really quick.
All right.
F2, yeah. Yeah, because -5 here. Yeah, that's -20 Celsius. Yeah, that's rough. Yeah, here in Ottawa and Montreal, where I lived as well. Yeah, you could get months, a solid month or two in the thick of winter, where that's every day. Really bad days would be -30 or even -40 with windshield.
Wow.
Yeah, I joke, but it's just, to me, it had never happened in my life. But the first time that I had to walk a significant distance through a storm, and it was windy, really, really windy,
Oh,
and it was one of the first years when I had grown a beard.
my face
So
hurts just hearing you talk about it now.
I had icicles coming off of my mustache. I had icicles falling off of my face.
Yeah.
It felt like out of a comic book or out of a movie, It was super. I was laughing, but also just in a lot of pain. I'm amazed I didn't get frostbite over my face. But yeah,
man.
so
Yeah.
some of the stereotypes about up here are true. Like even further north, like Northern Ontario, you get some really just year-long crummy weather. So
Right.
yeah, it's not. But I like the variety. I like the cold and warm. We get very warm summers too, so there's that nice variety. Yeah, but no, very cool. What was the other thing I wanted to ask? I had something else. Yeah, okay. This should be obvious question for me because I just finished mine. Are you planning to do an audiobook?
I am. Here's the thing. I had it all set up. I was going to go through. You familiar with ACX?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, I was going to go through them, and it turns out they want an actual copyright registration number, not just the Amazon registration copyright, to do an ACX. And so I had to apply for a copyright at the U.S. Copyright Office. And now I am currently waiting on them to copyright my book before I can put it up to have somebody make it into an audiobook. I'm still haven't. We're looking at least 6 months down the road. It could take up to 3 months for them to look over my book, and then another 3 months at least to find a producer and then have them record it and all that. But I'm definitely planning on doing it.
Did you reach out to them before it was published?
Yes.
Okay. So I honestly wonder. I would say go back into the system and try and check again, because I've heard of difficulties getting it done beforehand. You can record everything before you publish the ebook in particular, but it's hard to work with their system before an ebook is published. Whereas after, like mine, I had now it could be a Canada US thing. I don't know, so no promises. But I had none of that whatsoever.
Well, I will definitely go back and try that again because that could
yeah.
totally make a difference. Yeah.
Oh yeah, because once your book is on Amazon, it should be automatically linked to their system, and all you have to do is search the title and claim it as your book. It should technically.
Right. I was able to claim the book, but
Okay.
but for, I had to claim a book to even look for a producer.
Yeah. Yes. Okay.
But then when I was filling out the paperwork, they asked me for an actual copyright. But like you're saying, I think it's because it was not yet released.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe.
I think that could totally make a huge difference.
I think all they asked for me was the copyright holder, which legally, I think it's the same in most U.S. states, if not all of them, as it is in Canada. For a book, you can claim copyright ownership technically, as the author. Most you can kind of get around that. And Amazon, I checked in their in their requirements, and they were fine either way. There wasn't really you didn't have to have a legal document saying, which I technically do anyway, but I was double checking because of anyways, longer story.
Right.
But I'm curious. Yeah, I'm curious what other forms they got you to sign. Because in my case, it was just one line. Who's the copyright holder? I said me, and they were like, good, and smooth sailing.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to check that out again.
Yeah, because it might. I don't know. I'm very. This is very interesting to me because I've never heard of it being that tricky. So I wonder if it's changed now that you're published. Yeah.
On one respect, I do hope that you're right because being able to get that started would be awesome.
Yeah.
On another respect, I might have just wasted $65.
I mean, I can imagine much worse. At least it wasn't like 200, 500, a grand. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. At least you know what? Time is money. So if it is sooner, at least you'll save hopefully months, of waiting.
Right.
Yeah.
And I do want to get it out there in as many formats as possible.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I used ACX originally. Well, and I still am. The difference is I went through the process. I hired a narrator. We worked together, and ultimately, on their end, there was just complications, and they bit off maybe more than they could chew, and there were huge time gaps between samples coming in, and we ultimately realized we're not going to be done even close to on time. Probably would have been another 3 to 4 months past the contract end date. So I kind of said, okay, I think we're just going to have to go separate ways.
Right.
At which point I did it myself. So
yeah, I was going to do it myself. I don't have I just going to use Audacity.
Yeah. Which I did.
Yeah. But this is what I learned. You don't always talk at the same tone and volume, even if you think that you are.
Yeah.
And so I would record one chapter on one day and I'd record another chapter on one day. And to me, I am talking exactly the same as I did in the other one, but I'm not.
Yeah.
And so trying to balance that out, I didn't feel like I had the right equipment to do it right.
Yeah, I hear you. I struggled with that. It's fun. It's a fun challenge, but it's hard. There were some ways I found to moderate that. And then I didn't worry as much between chapters, because you give a gap and you introduce the chapter, there's a natural pause. And then I would especially enunciate the chapter name to make it clear we're starting something new. And it always, like, I really went for it with the chapter name. So I'd say chapter 1, and I wouldn't do it that bad, but you get the point. There was enough of a dramatic pause and a dramatic introduction that I don't think anyone would mind that shift, like you said. But what caught me was mid-chapter, something as simple as a drink of water, refreshes your voice, but huge difference. So between a paragraph and that's too much, for like, yeah. So I get you. I do. It's hard. It's amazing how consistent professional narrators.
I didn't pick up on it until I started listening to the chapters I had recorded in a row.
Yeah.
Like one chapter was at this volume, and then the next chapter was like way down here, and then the next chapter, it was all over the place. I couldn't get it. It sucked too because I really liked the voice acting. Like I wasn't doing voices, but I can act with my voice, and so I was really enjoying doing that. And the people that listened to it originally said that it sounded good and everything, but I just didn't feel like I could produce the quality that I was hearing. Like this was
Fair.
not going to go on Audible.
Well, yeah, I'll keep you posted on mine then. Yeah, because
All right.
I mean, these are the sorts of things I wrestled with, and I made sure I passed samples by
Right.
a few people who listen to audiobooks a lot, and they were like, "It sounds great," and I thought, "Are you sure?" Because I was nitpicking about a lot of this too. So I'm in the middle of waiting for their approval on mine. So we'll see. Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, but again, I had like overall the process of getting a narrator and even the initial, samples and the first chunk of chapters I got, like I really enjoyed the process. So it's definitely worth it. So hopefully that works out for you.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah,
I'm really excited about getting it done. I really like audiobooks.
yeah,
For some reason, an audiobook engages my imagination more than reading. And I,
interesting.
and I'm not really sure why, but reading a book, I can follow along with the story, but when I'm listening to the story, suddenly my imagination is just activated. Like I am picturing this stuff in my mind a lot more than I would be if I was reading it. And I can't explain that, but that's how it is.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I haven't listened to enough. I've listened to bits and pieces to get a feel for it. In like I say bits, but chunks, hefty chunks. But I don't listen to enough full. The audiobooks I do listen to in full tend to be nonfiction.
Right?
Whereas so fantasy and sci-fi I really do need to get into more. Um it's interesting though, the psychology there. I like that's something I'd be curious to explore. Is it because of our how important storytelling is to us as humans that we're wired to maybe capture more when we listen, or if it triggers certain things in us more audibly than just read from the page? I don't know. I'm
There,
very curious about this now.
there might be something about like that, like on a primal level.
Yeah, that's what I'm
But
going
I,
for.
I think that, like, for instance, I think it is the performance of the reader.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So like
Yeah,
if
'cause there's
someone
definitely
was
bad ones.
just flat, dull tone where there was no emotion expressed, they were just reading the words on the page, it 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 wouldn't have the same effect. But
Yeah,
somebody who's reading it, putting a performance into the reading, that adds a layer that reading it can't do.
fair. Yeah, no, it's true. It's and now a good narrator or the author, the nice effect too is there are things that words on a page, even from the best author, can't always capture. You can tell the story the way it was meant to be told.
Mhm.
Uh, so
Well,
that's fun. That's fun. It's fun to hear a story the way the author actually envisioned it, as opposed to just again, you don't always get that from the page.
Well, it's the same problem with trying to communicate on X.
Hmm.
Okay, like
Yeah,
90% of communication, the inflections in our voice, the look on our face, our body language, we're missing most of what is being said when we're
yeah,
just reading text.
yeah. Yeah, try to be sarcastic on X and see how that goes from
Right?
experience.
They need a sarcasm emoji.
Yep, yep. Well, sometimes that defeats the purpose, though. So no. Yeah, yeah. I
Right.
have fun with that because I like a good dose of sarcasm here and there.
Yeah,
People just
there has been many a tweet where I have written out something sarcastic and went, yeah, that's not going to come across right.
better not. Yep, 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 yep. Yeah, I've done well. You can still have fun with it, but you're right. The written word just doesn't capture that nuance. And on a place like X or just any social media, really, where people's attention spans are short and their emotions are high because people are just getting their next dopamine fix. They're quickly scrolling through. They see your thing. The first emotion that jumps into their mind connected to your words is what they're going to latch onto, and so it's very hard to communicate with nuance, and it's very easy to be it's very easy to miscommunicate and to be misconstrued, even if you were clear. uh, yeah, so it's a bit of a minefield for sure. I like it. I find it a fun challenge and a great marketing tool and a great community tool done well. But oh yeah. I mean, luckily things are dying down, but it can be a very dramatic place too. In the writing community in particular, there's a lot of highs, there's a lot of really big positives, but wow. Uh,
Right?
Sometimes there's a lot of drama.
It can be a minefield for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
day at a time, but yeah, I mean, again, it's just well, I like it as a platform, but it's just another tool ultimately, and it's the friendships you make and the connections you make and the audience you build, and all those different networks that matters more than the platform itself. So it's nice
Mhm.
to have multiple so you can balance that, but you also end up stretching yourself too thin, which is where I struggle. I really just focus on at this point. X is my main spot. Instagram I'm on as well now. Just now that I have more visual things I can put up there, but still not my favorite platform. Yeah, I don't know. So what about you beyond? Because I know you're on X and you're
I am
on.
on X. I was on Facebook and I
Hmm.
was on Instagram, but I fell for a scam.
Oh no.
What happened was I got a message from what I thought was Facebook security telling
Oh
me that I
no.
needed to do this thing. So I
Yeah.
did this thing, and it connected my account on Facebook to some account that was banned or blocked or something on Instagram. And so that they cut off my Facebook account. And then they said I can appeal through Instagram. And then I apparently had more than one Instagram account because I started one I forgot about years ago. And I appealed through the wrong Instagram account. And so so then they closed that one as well. I didn't talk to a single human being.
Wow, that sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that really sucks. Some of these, that is the thing. And you mentioned earlier too. Yeah. So let's touch on that really quick. But the adjudication on some of these platforms sucks.
Yeah.
The fact that you got kicked off of YouTube without explanation, same thing, right? Like
Right.
it's
And when I appealed to YouTube, and according to the appeal, they were going to go over my videos again and then get back to me. I
mm,
appealed within a minute. I got a response back. So they apparently watched 30 videos, something like that, in the matter of 30 seconds or whatever, and got back to me and decided that yes, we were right the first time.
wow.
But they didn't cite one instance. There
Yeah.
wasn't on episode this you did nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I hate these sorts of things precisely because it's not just a podcast in a lot of cases, and in this case, it's not just a platform. It's not just like this is an avenue to an audience, which for a creator, an
Mhm.
author, a writer, a comic book writer, all these. This is a life. It is a career you're potentially ruining
Yeah.
by deplatforming someone or cutting off their channel. And so you better have a darn good reason for that, and you better give it. Like it's just despicable behavior to me that they have that just turned into an algorithm that destroys people on a flip of a dime.
Well, this is what makes me think that it was all AI.
Mm.
Like one, I've had a violation on YouTube before. They sent me an email and they say, "Hey, look, on this episode, you did this. You can't do this anymore."
Mm.
Right? There
Yeah.
was nothing. There was nothing like that. Nothing at all. So, and there was no, I mean, without citing even one instance of, well, this is where you did this to give us, I think they said that I tried to sell things that weren't real. Um,
What?
I, this is the only thing I can think of. Do you know who, oh my gosh, Bathory? There was this queen several hundred years ago. Her last name was Bathory, and she liked to kill particularly virgin women and bathe in their blood. She thought that it kept her youthful.
Oh.
Okay, and
Uh,
so I made a joke about Bathory baths.
was there a movie? I feel like wasn't there a movie made about this queen?
Maybe
I
there
think
might
there
have
was.
been,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I made a joke about Bathory baths. You can try it out on this part. It was a joke about her doing the baths in the blood. That's the only thing I can even think of that even might be something they're talking about.
You know what? I was right. I looked it up. What's the actress's name? Yeah, so Countess Elizabeth Bathory.
Elizabeth Bathory, yeah.
The movie was well, no, she was called the Lady of. I can't even pronounce that. Nope, can't even. No, I'm not even gonna try. But yeah, the movie was The Blood Queen.
Yes.
Yeah, on Prime, or I believe. Anyways, yeah, it's on a few different places, but I've seen it around. I know the actress from some other spots too. Anyways, yeah. So that's really funny, and yeah, that's so weird.
That's as close as I came to selling things that aren't real.
That makes
And
no
that's
sense.
clearly a joke.
Yeah. So that sounds like AI to me, or some jerk with a grudge, keeping it. I don't know. Yeah, no. So weird. I with X, I don't know if you were around, when this happened to me, because it blew up. It was pretty funny, and to the writing community's credit, people came to my support, and it really helped. But right around, I think it was at the cover reveal. It wasn't the book launch. It was the cover reveal for my book. And I had a lot of people offer, to help support. So I gave them early copies, and I gave them the cover to show off on the day of. So a lot of build up, a lot of hype, and it blows up on the day of. It really blew up. I even had one of my author friends say, I just stayed off Twitter because I saw your cover too many times. I love the cover, but come on. And I was like, I can't help you. This is great. What are you talking about? Like, it was one day. Calm down. It was really funny. I thought it was really funny. Yeah. And point is, though, about halfway through the day, I think, my account got banned or suspended. You cat. Yeah, so I don't know how long it was into the reveal, but just barely into the reveal. The reveal kept going because everyone else was supporting it, but my account was suspended out of the blue, and I had no idea why. And I had no idea how to. I appealed it, but what was I even appealing, right?
Right.
So
they didn't give you any. They didn't give you any this account's been suspended because you violated.
No. They told me that I was accused of being a fraud or not being who I am. That was the reason. So I then reached out to friends who I still had contact with on other platforms, and people created like a hashtag, free Tim, and that went pretty much viral, which was fun to watch from outside.
Right.
And then on my own, I try to get to the bottom of it. So it looks like it was a combination of people reporting because they saw my cover reveal and were like, who is this guy? And I think people were just vindictive or in a bad mood, or I don't know. But enough people reported at the same time as my account was, I was reposting whenever someone posted. So there were a lot of posts coming from my account, combined with these reports, combined with I had an old antivirus plugin in my browser, and without me realizing, it was still doing its job, but it was introducing scripts onto X, which made it convince any one of these things it would have ignored. But all these things happening together on the same day convinced it that I was a bot. And the only reason I got to the bottom of it all is because my cousin works there now. So he happened to be working there at the time and was able to reach out to people who could actually do something about it. If not for that connection, I probably would not be back on now. Because they got to the bottom of it, helped me solve it. It's never happened again. But
oh my gosh.
Yeah. So any platform, that is the thing. They warn you when you are building anything on social media. It's fragile. It's very fragile in one way or another. It can be a mob, a Twitter mob turning against you, or it can be a platform deplatforming you on a whim. But these things are it's part of the game. But yeah, it's something I keep in mind often is how do you build in public in a way that isn't fragile, that isn't going to be just torn away from you on someone else's whim, Right. It's a tough game we play.
I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you read digital books?
Yeah, like on ebook, you mean?
Yeah, something like that, like a PDF.
PDF's tougher. Because I usually read on Kindle, and well, my Kindle can handle PDFs, so it's fine. So it depends on the quality, or not. It's not the quality; it's just the size. Because an EPUB can adjust, right? To
Right.
whatever font and size I want. Whereas a PDF, if it's small, like I've had some PDF books that just are too small to read, so I would have to read them on my computer, which I prefer not to do.
Ah,
Yeah, so I
all
tend
right.
to be more phone or ebook or sorry, phone or Kindle if I'm reading. But again, it just depends. Uh, yeah, that's all I can say is it depends. Probably, I don't know. Um, yeah,
All right.
okay.
My thought
Seriously,
was if you could read a PDF, that I could hook you up with a digital copy of my book for having me on your show.
I mean, I wouldn't say no either way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it would be my pleasure. Yeah, I mean, again, and coming from a novella, it would just depend on this font size, but it's not like your book is.
The font size is 12.5 and
That,
spacing is 1.5.
oh
I
yeah, that's going to be.
specifically did this because I wanted readability matters, and
Yeah,
I was trying to consider not just a young audience.
yeah,
I want people that are getting up towards my age to be able to read this stuff too.
yeah.
So it instead of where 10 or 11 is the normal font size for a novella, I put mine at 12.5, and then that spacing in there makes a difference too.
Yeah. So you know what? We're good. It would be my pleasure. I mean, if, yeah, either way works. Either way works. If you have the EPUB, because I know it's on Kindle too, so that would work. But otherwise, I'll happily take a PDF. Yeah. Again, I'm kind of in a novella phase right now. I take way too long on longer books, even though I used to be able to read them much faster. A novella or a short story, I can blast through, so it's helpful.
Friend of mine started reading The Dread in the morning and was done by early afternoon.
Yeah. It used to take me 2 days to read a 600-page book, and now it takes me 2 months. So
You mentioned in your author thing to get ready that you wanted to see a copy of the book.
in my
And the thing to get ready for
in the package, yeah, yeah,
yes,
that we
that you
sent, yeah, yeah,
wanted to see
yeah,
a copy of the book, and
yes,
I have this is the first paperback copy.
beauty.
Yeah,
Oh, look
yeah,
at that. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, very
oh
nice.
yeah, yeah. I don't know if you can.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, look at that. Maybe we can let me see if I can put us. Nope, not that one. Um, I think I can switch us and then get you nice and full. Oh, not that. There
There we
we
go.
go. No.
Well, you still can't see it
There we
very well,
go.
but
Now we're good. It's
it
still
give you an
better.
idea
Yeah.
of the readability there.
Yeah. Anyways, but I see. Yeah, yeah. See on PDF that'd be fine. Absolutely.
All right.
Um, there we go. Still getting used to this system myself, but yeah, very cool. Always fun for people to see the physical copies. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. The hardbacks for some reason are taking longer to get out. They're
Mm,
available, but for some reason they take longer to ship out.
just shipping. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Especially on Amazon,
Right.
shipping hardcovers takes longer.
And I couldn't believe this. If my sister bought a copy
Hmm.
and she bought a hardback, my mom wanted a hardback copy. But check this out: the shipping on the hardback copy was $10.
Oh, oh, and that's US too. That doesn't even make sense. Oh, yeah. That's so bizarre. Well,
The
I
hardback is
wonder.
$17.99, and I think she said she had by the time she paid shipping, she wants to say it was I don't want to say she was it's like 26 or
That's
27 or something like that, which is ridiculous.
yeah,
And but she doesn't have Prime, so that might make a difference.
yeah, yeah. Because that's the thing is I have Prime. Without Prime, it's now I
I don't
can't.
think there is shipping with Prime.
Yeah, no, there. Okay, so yours do count as Prime. There wouldn't be shipping on those. Yeah, because
Right,
that's
but
what
if you don't have Prime, it's $10 to get
that's
the hardcover.
that's
It's
vicious.
not with the paperback. It's not $10 to get the paperback.
Oh,
I think the paperback its shipping is like $4 or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know why their hardcover shipping is so terrible. It's not just the cost, it's the time, and it's the same thing for me. Uh, now, if I'm ordering now, I'm curious with Prime if their time would be shortened because when I order, this is the funny thing is it's almost worth it to just buy my own book at full price on Amazon rather than ordering author copies because author copies take a full month to reach me. Hardcover, paperback, they come in a day. Hardcovers take a full month to reach me, and I have to pay like with shipping. It costs more. It's
Right.
almost cheaper to buy by Amazon Prime, and I can get a hardcover to me within a day or two, max 2 days, and
Right.
I so it almost pays for itself. It essentially because shipping is free. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's kind of ridiculous. Now, in that case, is because I'm in Canada. Now we have a huge Ottawa being the capital. It's not the biggest city, but it's big enough, and we have an Amazon center. So we print the paperbacks are
Oh,
printed
okay.
right here. But
Oh, well, then there's
apparently,
no reason that should take that long. I mean, you're
well,
right there in the
apparently,
dang city.
well, exactly. But apparently, they store hardcover copies here, but they print them in the U.S.
Ah,
They're not capable yet of printing in a lot of countries other than the US and UK, as far as I know.
I
So
see.
that's part of why hardcovers are such a pain. But in the US, it makes no sense. Yeah.
Speaking of which, uh, where I released it became a thing. Uh, I had because I told you I used Call of Cthulhu, from the 1920.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, in the United States, that is in public domain. Okay, but it is not in public domain everywhere.
Uh,
So
oh.
I could only release the book in countries where that particular book was public domain. And I'll tell you, rather than research every single country on the planet, I found out that the European Union countries, it's public domain, and in the United States, it's public domain, and so I just chose those.
Okay. I don't even know how that. Now I'm curious how to even do that. It's like, was that through Amazon? Uh, how do you limit the countries it's released to?
When you're choosing where you when you're setting up the book, you come to a spot where it asks you where you want to release it.
Okay. See,
It
I think for me, it just gave I just chose like it gave me the option for a primary market, and I just chose US for that.
right,
Because most people I know and that is the case, it just worked out that way. I can't even explain it, but I sell far more books in the US than in Canada or anywhere else.
right,
Um, could just be a population thing, but still, it surprised me because I talked to other Canadian authors who publish almost exclusively in Canada just by just the way it is. So I did something right, I guess.
right.
But yeah, definitely for me, the option was always well, set your primary market and then set prices for all the other ones, or for all of them. But it doesn't give me a way, I don't think, to limit.
When
That's
I did
interesting.
it, there was this whole scroll through window of like a billion freaking countries to choose from.
That's so wild. Yeah, no, I don't get that. Oh, okay. No, no, no. You know what it is? Is they give you, I'm looking at my price page now, and they give you an option. So it says territories, and then you can
Yeah,
either select all territories or you select
that's what I'm
individual
talking about
territories.
there.
I
Yeah,
see. I see. I don't even know what that screen would look like then. Yeah, because I just
uh,
selected all. Interesting. Interesting.
and it's all
Yeah.
because I'm using public domain works. If I
Fair.
wasn't, that wouldn't even have come up because
Yeah.
I'm the author. I own it. I can put it out. But
I
because I'm
see.
using public domain stuff like
Yeah.
Paradise Lost and Odysseus and the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius and all that kind of stuff, it matters.
That's tough.
Yeah.
Oh, that adds a whole other layer. Yeah, that's really tough. That's a whole other level of challenge. It's part of why I admire certain genre writers like
Mm.
sci-fi. For some forms of I admire all sci-fi, but forms that really still connect to today's world, they run the risk of capturing things that are public domain like that. Or if you're doing research like historical fiction, like history or historical fiction, or just modern timepieces that make reference to things that are copyright protected or not public domain. That's so hard. Oh, okay.
Your boy's on there.
Yeah. Let me see if there's a message on X. Yes, we are, Isaac. Yeah, sorry. I let me. I don't know if Isaac is free. There we go.
Could I?
Yeah.
Could I take a quick bathroom break? I'll be back.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, we've been going a while, so I mean,
Okay.
we were probably close. We were probably about to wrap up, but I'll
Oh.
let Isaac. No pressure, but
I got no problem hanging out, man.
fair. I mean, it's getting it's not too late for me. I can stay up late, but yeah, it's coming to about 11, quarter after 11 p.m. here, so getting there. But yeah, take a bathroom break. Isaac will probably join in a second, and yeah, we can chat for a little longer. I don't mind another half hour or so.
Yeah, sure. Sounds great.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Cool.
Okay.
After 11 p.m. here, so getting there. Hey, take a bathroom break. Isaac will
What's
probably
up?
join in a second. Oh, I think. You probably still have your YouTube open.
Yeah, I just closed it.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I
can
just want to
still hear
pop
it.
in to say hi. I don't want to make the stream last forever.
Oh, you know what? I can still hear my echo though. Oh, like it. Is it because Mike's is
Maybe,
open?
hang on. It's probably me.
Probably.
All right.
Hey. We're just sorting out a bit of an echo here.
How's that? No echo?
Let's see.
Echo.
Testing. We're good.
No echo. We got it.
There we go.
I fixed it. Mike, good to meet you, buddy.
Nice to meet
I don't
you.
want to take up add even more time to the stream, but I just want to pop in and say hi. Sorry I
Hey.
couldn't make it tonight.
It's quite all right, man. I'm sure you had some stuff going on. Life happens,
Yeah.
man.
Life definitely
Life
happens. Yeah, well, glad you got to join in for a bit, Isaac. This is fun. It's been a fun night. I think I hopped on. Yeah, but I don't know whatever time that was. Yeah, probably quarter after 8. So yeah, I've been on 3 hours.
If it makes you feel any better, my internet went out at 2:00 and was out for about 3.5-4 hours. And so I came on. It was like 6:30 here which is 9:30 where Tim's at.
Yeah.
Before I even came on because my internet went out. So it's a bit of a late
Delays
coming
all
for
around.
everyone. Yep.
Good thing I left open my X, because then I got a message from Steve Suller.
Steve. Yeah.
Yeah, your co-founder of Revelation and editor. So
Yeah.
very cool. Yeah. Anyways, it's fun all the people you meet on X, because we were already following each other too. So
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a world.
I'm sure Steve is currently writing. He has comics that he's switching over to novellas or novels and stuff too. So I'm sure he'll be on your show eventually as well.
yeah, open invite. So
Yeah.
that'd be very cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, not to retread ground, but do you do comic art? Do you just write the comics?
Well, I don't do comics at all anymore, but when I did, I was the
Oh.
writer.
Gotcha.
I tried doing comics. Basically, long story short, it was too expensive, not sustainable. Novels are a lot easier to put out.
Okay.
Well, now you mentioned earlier that the first one you did was when you were 12. Did you illustrate that one?
Yes.
Fair. Okay, there we go. Yeah. So
Yes.
and then eventually,
I was a bit of an artist there for a while, but I turned out that while I could draw adequately, humans and buildings and stuff like that, my forte was really letterings and logos and stuff like that.
fair, very fair. Yeah. So, and I mean, it makes sense. But like you said, the cost, and this is coming from experience with book covers, too. But I mean, yeah, getting. Oh, and when you gave the price tag for a full comic book earlier, I thought it makes sense, and you're right, that is on the cheap end, but several $1,000s per little publication.
And imagine this: you spend that much money on a book, and people won't pay more than $4 or $5 for it.
Yeah. Oh, I get it. We all get it. Everyone in this space gets it. Yeah. I saw a post about that today. And I mean, it's even crazier with comics because those are, even longer graphic novels, quick read,
Uh-huh.
But to me, that's where I can understand at least a little. If someone, is reluctant to pay more than a certain amount for a 500-page book, I'm like, okay, because it is a time commitment. So they're not just like, hopefully they'll enjoy all that time. So they're getting more value out of it. But it is also a big commitment on their part, right? A bit, and maybe even a bit of a risk if they don't fully know you as an author yet. So finding that price point can be very difficult.
There's another, you bring up another added layer of difficulty there.
Hmm.
For instance, I talked about when I first write out a story, it's generally pretty long, and then I got to kind of dial it back a little bit, right? But so it oh man, how basically man, I had a perfect way of how to say that.
I think I might know where you're going. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
But when you as the author, someone they only see the finished product. They see however many 32,000 words, right?
Yeah.
But you put in this massive world of research and building and plotting and all the, like you talked about, page after page just to describe one panel of the comic, right? So for your novella, this huge world that you've put hours and hours and weeks, 8 years, I think you said, right?
Right.
Or 8 months, sorry, 8 months of writing, but really stretched over.
Yes. You see,
they're paying $5 for that.
There you go.
Shoot. Yeah, you froze on my end. Okay. How much did we lose of what I said? Here, let me close.
Not a lot. You were talking about how much of an investment it is to spend that much time, and then people don't buy it.
There, yeah. So you put all that in, two years worth, and massive amounts of writing beyond just the 30,000 words, and people pay $5. People complain if it's more than $2.
Right, and it's also about length when you're talking about comic books. The average comic book that comes out when you're talking about Marvel, DC, is 23 pages. That is the average length of a comic book. Yeah, my average comic book was around 48 pages. But even though they were getting that many more pages, people still didn't want to pay more than $3 or $4 for it, even though it didn't matter. That's just
like, at what point do you reclaim the amount you invested into it when the illustrations alone are $3,000?
Yeah,
and you're making and you're selling it for $3 a book. You're not even necessarily making $3. Anyways, oh yeah.
But I gotta tell you, paying editors and everything, all involved with that, I spent like an eighth of what I spent on comics, putting out the Dread. Wow,
that says everything, doesn't it?
Yeah,
because I mean, it's still not a small amount to pay for those things for a book. Yeah, but wow, it adds up. Oh yeah, so I can see why you made the change.
And I really
to
do
be really
feel
successful
comfortable
with the comics. You need to be you need to be a unicorn. You need to do everything yourself. Who's the guy who does Bone? What's that guy's name? Jeff Smith or Jeff? Is Jeff something? Anyway, he did all himself, independent, became one of the biggest comic book flash in the pan fires ever. Bone, right. And he did it all himself, just in his closet, basically. Well, that's kind of what it takes.
That is the thing about doing anything independent. If you're doing something independent, be prepared to wear at least 6 or 7 hats on a regular basis.
Yeah. Which, well, I mean, hey, you're on all caps, so this is the right place for it. But
right.
That was so bad. But yeah, I mean, that's where the joke was born. We both wear our hats and all caps, as in you get it, anyways.
Right.
So no, it's true. I love that. Is I talk to a lot of people who hate that part of this. I love it. I love getting to learn the new skills, and it'd be nice to find more ways to to give away some of those responsibilities to free up time. But on the other hand, I like the different skill learning, and I find they bleed into each other.
Honestly, my drive to do that came from a mistake.
Huh.
When I put out my very first comic book, Omen #1, I had never written a comic before. I didn't try writing several comics or polishing my skills first. I just wrote a comic like, how hard can it be, and put it out there. And what ended up happening is, while there are some good things about it, I ended up regretting the publication of it because I was not proud of the work that I put out.
Fair. Was it so? Oh, I'm curious. What happened then? So did it stay isolated? Did you take it down long term?
No. I eventually took it down. What that drove me to do was to make sure that when I put out my first novella, I had as many eyes on this book as I can possibly get. So I had my friends, my neighbors, my long lost girlfriend's ex-brother's former roommate checking it out. It was anybody I could get eyes on this thing before I published it. I had them looking at it.
Fair. Yeah, it's the way to do it.
Yep.
Had some time, but it's the way to do it.
It did. I got to tell you, it took a good. I'm gonna say a little over 5 months to get all the editing done and all the everybody reading it and all the feedback and all that kind of stuff before I was able to put it out.
Yep. Oh, it's tough. It's I mean, it's worth it, but yeah, I mean, and that's a novella, you know. When you expand that to 150,000, 200,000 word chunker that you see in the fantasy genre, whew, it takes a long time.
For sure.
So, yeah, it's fun. Sure. I love it, but yeah, yeah. And we talked about your two editors and the process there. And yeah, I'm curious on your own end, like any other tidbits, any other tricks of the trade when you're doing when you're compiling all that and finalizing the editing. What does your final process look like for getting to that final polished version you can be proud enough to put out there?
Well, once I made sure, and I had, like I mentioned before, I'm a much better storyteller than I am at grammar.
Yeah.
So, and while I'm not a bad speller or anything like that, it's mostly like I put commas in the wrong spots or little stuff like that where I'm writing it out like someone would say it, and I'm like, well, they'd have a little pause right here, so I'm going to put a comma there. And that's not necessarily where the commas get supposed to go, that kind of thing. So there was a bit of that kind of thing going on there that had to be gone over with the editors and stuff. But
did you relinquish that to the editor then? Like if their say had the final, or did you ever fight a bit? Yeah,
we sort of. What I did was I would give them a copy of the chapter. And then they would do their corrections on it. Then I would take those corrections and I would do it. I would put it up against my copy of it, and I would look to see what they did, because I didn't want to just have them fix the mistakes. I wanted to learn to not make the mistakes again.
There, yeah.
And so it was. I wanted to go over. Oh, okay, so that's how you're supposed to do that, and maybe that wasn't necessary right there, and little stuff like that.
Yeah. That's now. Did they give a lot of? I'm curious about their approach to. Did they just make the changes, or did they give comments explaining them? Maybe not all. But
there was, when it was just a simple thing like fixing where a comma was placed or something like that. Sometimes if a wording was not quite right, or didn't quite come across the way that I wanted it, or something along those lines, they would say like, this doesn't quite sound right, like maybe something like this or something along those lines. But no, it was mostly grammar that they were dealing with.
Fair. Okay. Yeah. But no, you still hit on it. I love the learning process in editing. So anyways, that's very cool. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to evolve. Not just as a writer, but as a person, to an extent that every couple of years I don't recognize the guy I was before.
Oh, there's a clip. I mean, I love that quote, and I love that attitude, because it's very much, I'm right there with you.
I want to eventually mutate. I want to eventually have another arm growing out of my back that I can use to grab things behind me.
Can I recommend playing Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay then?
Ooh.
They have this thing called corruption in that. And if you get enough corruption points, you literally do grow an arm or an extra thing, or, any kind of mutation the game master decides to put on you.
That's fun. That is fun.
But we were talking about we were talking about, how you got so many of your early readers from your D&D group, which I thought was awesome. Yeah. I mean, we don't have to jump into it right away, or we can, but I'm just thinking of it because we had a game prepared for tonight, and Isaac is the game master. So speaking of D&D, we did have a game ready, and I do have it. I just duplicated our other chat, so I do have it here if we wanted a little quick D&D experience tonight too, but depends on what you got time for. It's not long. It's just
totally up to you.
Yeah, I don't know, but no pressure, Isaac. I realize you're probably coming from a busy night, or I don't know. So.
Yeah, I have to remember what I wrote down.
Okay, fair. Yeah, so no pressure. We can just keep this fun and casual. And
as a fellow dungeon master, I can totally relate.
Yeah,
I am not a panster. I am a plotter.
Fair. Yeah,
down to the bone.
Yeah. So true for DMing as well as running the premise. Yeah.
I tried doing this game. Keys to the Golden Vault. Have you seen the adventure?
I don't think so. No.
It's like a heist adventure.
Okay.
But basically, there are so many moving parts going on at once that, like, any one false move here could completely screw things up everywhere else. And there was just so many going. It wasn't like there's a quest that needs to be done. You do these things. It was like, go into here and then figure things out for yourself. And I had a hard time running that.
Fair. Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah. What was I going to say? I feel like I had a thought. Now it's my turn. I'm having the same thing as you earlier, where it's just totally gone. So yeah. But I'm in between. I have loose plots, and I definitely pants or discovery writer, whatever you want to call in between, where it's more I will have a plot and I will have it pretty. I'll have a very clear idea of where I'm going, and then I will betray that on the first whim as I write the story. It's just and so far those betrayals have never led me astray. It's just I'll make them very carefully, but I have no problem making them. I have no problem scrapping that plot if I realize, I had that in mind, but here's a much better way to get there. That makes far more sense with the characters.
Especially if it simplifies things and makes it shorter.
Yep.
I do something with a story that I actually don't know of anybody else that does this as a writer. But like with the Dread, for instance, I started out with the ending, worked my way backwards.
Yeah.
And then right around I get to right about the middle. And then I'm like, okay, now how do I get to that point? Then I start from the beginning and work my way forward.
Well, I wonder if, because I've heard, because I mean, because your story has such a heavy detective element to it, right?
Yeah.
I feel like that's more common with that kind of story.
Because
to have a really effective mystery, you have to know what the audience doesn't to a T.
For sure.
So I wonder if you have to know the resolution, you have to know the end point, you have to know what it's all going to. You have to know what the clues mean, so that when you sprinkle them in, the audience, they won't necessarily recognize them until later when the reveals happen. But you have to be prepared for that reveal way ahead.
Sort of. You see this scene right here, right on the cover of the book?
Yeah.
That's the scene I started with in my mind.
Nice.
And that's the ending.
It's also it's what happens at the beginning. It starts off with the nightmare.
Oh, it's the nightmare. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Fun.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Well, they say, intros or endings make for good book covers, or just the climax, I guess. But open it. Yeah. I mean, that's what I did. I went with kind of the climax, the final showdown.
Right.
Yeah, but then sometimes I'm wrestling with that for book 2, which is going to be put off because of the novella I'm working on. But yeah, deciding on a cover scene, that's got to be tough. I'm wondering. Yeah.
Well,
Now
the whole title, The Dread, was based around this nightmare.
Yeah. So
and
fits
so
very nicely.
And so a picture that showed the nightmare without delving into it was what I thought the cover needed to be.
Oh, so that's nice too. Well, I mean, you said it's the opening anyway, but it's nice that it's a scene that is revealed right away, but the importance of it won't be clear till much later in the story. So it doesn't just capture the opening; it captures the full breadth of the book in that sense.
Very first paragraph.
Very first paragraph. Okay, yeah.
Right now, I'm standing on the rooftop of a colossal block, 200 stories up, pointing my New Earth Police Department Mark III plasma handgun at an unarmed man. The synthetic sun lamps up above me are hot and bright, this close to the ceiling of level 1. My mouth is dry like the barren wastelands of Earth, and I'm sweating my ass off. On any other occasion, drawing down on a perp would just be another Tuesday for a serial homicide detective like me. But this is no ordinary day cycle.
Nice.
It's Wednesday.
That was good. It's awesome. Yeah. There we go. Now we've had 2 readings on this show today. So
nice.
Yeah. EL insisted when I mentioned my audiobook when we were talking before you came on, Mike, he got me to do a reading from mine. So yeah, anyways, that's awesome. We should see, that's something we should do more often. Well, you from your podcasting days and everything, you're obviously far more comfortable talking like this, but we talked about this earlier and we worried that not all authors would be as comfortable. It's tricky. I don't know, but it's fun. I like hearing.
I ever went on, they asked me to read from my book.
Oh yeah.
It was I felt very awkward. I didn't know he was going to do it. Okay. Yeah. Or maybe maybe he warned me. I don't know if he warned me or not. I did okay. I think I overdid the voices a little bit.
Fair.
Yeah. I think I did okay though.
I tend to be impulsive. I wasn't planning on doing the reading. It just
it was awesome. It was great. Yeah. What a great sell. I think the first thing like this I ever did was on Matt Sorensen's Beard of Darkness, and he mentioned it. He mentioned the possibility of a reading, not before, while we were talking, and I kind of shied away from it. So then he just opened the book and did it himself, and did it pretty well actually. But that was a fun experience to have someone else read the first few paragraphs of your book, just to sell it to the audience, just to say, hey, here's the story, and it worked. I think that alone actually got me a good amount of sales for my very first book. So. And people, like you said earlier, there's something different about actually hearing a story out loud.
For sure.
Yeah.
Steve, one of my editors, he said something that I thought was interesting, and actually is kind of descriptive as to what's going on in the story. He said that he's talking about me in the third person there, but he said, Mike Nunneley that likes to dig into the deepest, darkest corners of the human psyche and drag it up squirming into the light and confronts his characters with it.
Fun. Yep. Yeah. Well, that's going to be a fun one to read. Again, I'll definitely take you up on that PDF. So.
Oh yeah. I appreciate you having me on the show.
Yeah. I mean, absolute pleasure. So. And again, novellas right now really refreshing. And coming off of my judging short stories and coming off of reading so many fantasy chonkers, it's nice to have something that captures all these sorts of things, but in a smaller space. It's not a requirement, but I'm starting very much to see the appeal. I never thought I say that. The books that got me hooked when I was younger were shorter, like novellas. So I go through cycles. I don't know if everyone else is like that, but
one of the reasons for the brevity and the dread is the hard-boiled genre that I chose to write in. Was because in that genre it tends to be a fairly fast-paced story, and so the dread is very much like that. I have a couple of chapters where you're getting to know the characters and the story is building, but it's like basically once you hit chapter 3, it is just a fucking roller coaster ride to the end. I have a foul mouth. I'm sorry.
That kind of story. Okay. You've sworn twice the entire time you've been on. Doesn't even count.
Well, that's honestly a record for me. I'm swearing that many times.
That's awesome. Yeah. I never used to, and then I realized I developed one over time. And I think I realized when one Christmas I was with family. It's like at my aunt's place and my mom was the one to comment on it after the fact. I think we were kind of leaving, and she said, you use some language more than I remembered, and I was like, oops, because they were swearing up a storm too, so I wouldn't have noticed, but she brought it up, and I realized, oh yeah, you know what, you're not wrong.
I will say though that swearing, some people think that those that swear a lot must have a small vocabulary. I have a very large vocabulary, and yet I swear because I like the nuance it puts on a sentence. I like the punctuation. There are some times where a swear word is the only word that will work in that situation.
Yeah. So in your writing, how much does it slip in? I'm curious.
I use it particularly when I'm trying to emphasize a moment. Like my characters don't just swear all the time, but when something serious is going on, like, but I use the phrase, "This is no fucking movie" in my book because you know what I mean. When I'm trying to make a point. Yeah.
I see a lot in fantasy. There's a lot of authors who will go just over the top. It's like the new thing to do is to write some fantasy that's just extremely heavy in swearing, and it takes me out of it. Yeah. Oh, that's the thing is it's in a like why, it doesn't feel right. And even if you're like, oh, well, this character is a military character, but then it turns out it's all the characters. It's the young one, it's the old, no matter what role they're in, everyone is swearing in this world. And even if it's consistent, it feels off,
That doesn't,
I mean,
that doesn't seem like
the problem is they're using like modern swear words.
See, that's definitely
some classic swear words from back in the day, then
that's why I do prefer world specific, like made up swear words work for me in a fantasy setting, or older sounding swear words for sure.
Like fracking in Battlestar Galactica.
There we go. Yeah. Yep. But that's exactly it. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Or like Wheel of Time did that well. It used like ashes and something. Like light and ashes, I think it was, and it fit the world, and that was it, and it worked. And other characters would be like, "I can't believe you just said that." So you knew it was swearing, but it doesn't sound like it, but it worked, Right? So they drew just enough attention to it for it to feel inappropriate, right? As it worked, And there's none of that in these contexts. It's just the expectation is the reader is mature, and we're writing to a modern audience, so I'm going to use modern language, and it doesn't fit the setting.
Let me bounce this off you guys. What do you think about trigger warnings? I got to tell you, I was asked about
something just absolutely horrifying in your story, like truly surprising and horrifying, then sure, yeah. But if it's a normal violent story, then there's going to be fighting, there's going to be shooting, there's going to be bleeding. I mean,
I was asked to do a trigger warning recently. For a website, and I said, I am a horror writer. As such, I write about things that are genuinely disturbing. Read at your own risk.
Yeah. I think a disclaimer like that does it. And if the genre alone doesn't, which it should, a disclaimer like that at least captures it. I'm not morally against, like, I know some people who are like, oh, it has a trigger warning, I'm not going to read that book. I feel like that's too far the other direction.
Here's the reason there are trigger warnings.
Okay.
You have these really pretty covers, and inside the book are deplorable, violent things that you weren't expecting with the pretty cover.
Yeah.
So as long as your cover matches the contents of the book, I think you're fine. If your book is about a serial killer who eats people while they're still alive as he's blaring music or something, I don't know, you should have a very scary cover that depicts something very disturbing. Yeah. You shouldn't have a pretty flower and like some ice, and the title shouldn't be like Musings of My Heart, and it's something horrible. Then I imagine, yeah, you should give people a heads up, because you haven't given them a heads up with your title, with your cover. Maybe your description does, but the trigger warning should be the cover.
Fair. Yeah. And that's the thing is I can understand why some people then don't, because sometimes they have a cover in mind that's very specific and hits the right vibe for the overall book, but doesn't quite capture some of those things. And so they throw them in. Some people throw them in regardless, just to meet an expectation. And sometimes that just bores me. I'm like, but that's fine, because I can skip that and just read, and other people will appreciate it. So who cares? So I'm kind of on the side of, I don't use them. I almost did. I might. I have one line that I've already written that I may or may not include in the final version of my sequel for a very specific thing. And the irony is, it's warning against a very specific thing in a single chapter that is surrounded by things far worse. It's just, I know this one thing does. I can understand I can understand why a content warning. I'm just going to call it a content warning. I feel like that's less
right.
It's less ideologically loaded than trigger warning. So I'm going to use content warning. I feel like I can justify a content warning for one thing, but I'm not going to give it for, like, the irony is the thing surrounding it is like someone being burnt alive and a lot of really terrible stuff. So like, it's as violent as I get in the context, and then this other terrible thing. I won't get it. Like, I won't spoil it or get into the specifics. It's not nearly as bad as you'd think. It's just something that can psychologically bring up a lot. I don't know, but it's tough. Again, like, I wrestle with it because I don't really think it's necessary. But
I didn't think it was necessary enough to put in my book.
Yeah.
But I did go on, are you familiar with idiosyncrasy?
Yep, idiosyncrasy. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, she had asked if I wanted to put a trigger warning up there.
Okay.
And that was the first time I'd ever been asked about it. And I was just like, well, honestly, if you know I'm a horror writer, you should know what you're getting into when you pick up my book. But in case you need it clarified, was kind of the idea.
When I've submitted to some places that ask for, like, sometimes they'll give you the option to just say NA or none. But whenever I'm given that box, I will usually throw in some things that aren't in the book itself. So, like, when I'm talking about the Fall of Sylvandria, I don't have trigger warnings here. But if I go onto a website that or if I'm entering my book into a contest or a few things and they ask for trigger warnings, okay, yeah. So I'll say, I always have it prepared. I know what I'm going to say. I'll say, okay, it has intense but not grotesque violence, mild language, because I do swear a little in the book, but pretty mild, and fitting to the setting. Again, that's the thing, is I don't throw in a bunch of F-bombs in a fantasy world. It just doesn't really work. Whereas damn and bastard kind of do. In the settings I use them, in the context when they're used, it works, and they're very rare. But when they do appear, I don't think anyone would think twice. They would just keep reading. It's like, but yeah. So I'll mention the language, even though it's very mild, extremely mild, and I'll mention the violence, and I'll kind of leave it at that. I think maybe one other thing, but you get the point, right? Like I give that to them because I know it's what they. It's not. It's just. Some of them might find the violence too much, but you'll know within 2 chapters of reading my book. So at least I've warned them, and then they see for themselves and they realize, okay, if it's going to be more of this, I better stop. Great, please do. But I don't know. I wrestle with it. I do.
Here's a big problem I have with putting a trigger warning on the dread. Some of the things that might cause a trigger to be triggered are part of the climax of the book.
Yeah.
And I don't want to give you. I don't want to kill the ending of the book to let you know that it's going to happen. And if I tell you this happens in the book, you're going to spend the whole time not following the story like I want you to, waiting for that one event to happen.
Yeah. What I really like, the writing battle judge contest that I just finished judging for.
Yeah.
What they do is they give the authors the authors are not obligated to give a content warning, but they can, and those who do are then also given the option to select content warning contains spoilers, and if they select that, it will hide the content warning from us judges unless we click it. It'll say content warning provided, and then you can click it and it'll give it to you. But if there aren't spoilers, it'll just show you the content warning. But 99% of the authors who submit don't give a content warning. So it's a nice system.
It's kind of hard to do in like a physical book, though.
Sorry?
If it's a physical book, you can't really do that, though.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point. Is for physical books, I don't see how you can get around that. You're going to end up spoiling things, which to me,
yeah, that's a main reason why I couldn't do it. I don't. I can't give away a climax, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's no, I think this is something I've wrestled with consistently since I started in this, but ultimately I'm probably more of a middle ground to the two extremes I see. It's like I get why some people want them. I also think it goes way too extreme. And then I get why some people hate them, and I also think that the hatred can sometimes be a little extreme. So I'm kind of in the middle where like they don't bother me. I don't care.
Here's what you do. Here's what you do. You make crap up in your trigger warning. You do it just like Fargo. Fargo begins as a true story. The names have been changed. All that's made up. None of that's true. They begin the movie like that to make it, oh, this is serious. But everything's made up. Your trigger warnings, you put all this stuff in there. Like people are waiting for this thing to happen, but the opposite happens and subvert expectations.
That could be tricky, but also sounds very fun at the same time.
Yeah. So, twisty, but I love it.
That twisty link is in your chat, by the way, on the DM chat.
Oh, let me I closed just to prevent this from slowing us down. Yeah, that's the funny thing. I had another browser open for about half of our chat before, but whenever it's 3 or more people on here, it's apparently my little computer.
Oh, well, you don't got to look at it now. It's just the link to the book. It's a Google Drive link.
Oh, I see, for the PDF. Okay, yeah, brilliant. Yeah, love it. I'll thank you so much. Definitely looking forward to that. Yeah. Yeah. Well, look at that. Okay. So we talked about a few minutes, and yeah, well, you came on around what? Yeah, 9:30, like you said.
Yeah, around 9:30. Yeah.
We've done pretty well. We've done pretty well for an almost didn't happen, but I'm really glad it did conversation.
Yeah. I've had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We'll have to do it again, and we'll run you through the game.
Yeah, there we go. We'll save the game for next time, and we'll give it a proper next time. Yeah, next time a novella comes out, or whenever you have something new. The audiobook.
I am currently 7 chapters into Omen and 5 chapters into Seder.
Wow. So you're already like very ahead of the game on those next 2 projects. That's got to be soon then. Yeah.
I'm guessing. Awesome. I'm hoping to get the other one at least ready to be edited by the end of the year.
Very cool. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, that's only what? Oh my gosh, it's already June. That is. Yeah. That's ridiculous. We're halfway through. We are halfway through this year. Where did it go?
My deadline is fast approaching.
Yeah.
Oh. I got to tell you, I am an inspiration writer. I don't do well under pressure. I can produce work, but if you want quality work, I can't do that. If you
When
want,
the
if you,
muses strike.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I
do
typically
great under pressure.
when I got a
I don't know what
deadline,
it is.
I will start on the way ahead of schedule.
Fair.
I don't. If I don't have that inspiration, I don't. It is not quality work. That's just all there is to it.
Fair.
I wish I could be like you, Isaac, and just kind of crunch into it.
I have days where I spend 4 hours writing something, and then the next day I'm like, I gotta throw all that away. None of that,
Yeah.
none of that's good.
Yeah.
Then I save like 3 sentences from it that are good, and I do it again.
Oh,
And it takes
Have
forever.
you ever written that perfect paragraph, and you're like, oh, this is beautiful. The gods are gonna worship this paragraph, and then you have to.
I love it when that happens.
From the
and I
story.
hate it when that happens because then everything after it has to be just as good.
Right?
It never is.
Yep.
I had that. I did with what we were talking about earlier, Tim. I actually cut that out and I pasted it onto another document, and I ended up finding a place to put it at the end of a chapter, and it actually nailed the end of the chapter better than it would have normally. So it ended up working out. But when I first had to cut that paragraph, oh my God, that hurt. Oh
yeah, I feel that. I feel like, and I do it more and more the more I write. Whereas, and maybe just because when you're starting out, you hold on to everything too much and you don't know to cut. Or it's a learned skill. It's a learned skill to start cutting, where you can and should. And yeah, but just the other day I was writing, the opening chapter for the novella, and I had these 2 paragraphs that were more world building, more dense, more not quite info dump, but approaching it enough that I thought, I really don't like this, and it's following some really strong paragraphs, some really strong action and dialogue, and really like the story was really starting to build, and suddenly I have this. So I moved it, I put some spaces, put it down further on the page, kept writing, and eventually I just stole lines from those paragraphs and slipped them in, and it slowly disappeared.
I've done that.
It worked, but I was nervous. I almost thought, I don't know where I'm going to fit this in, but it's essential, but also not, but also, and I really wrestled with it, and then it just worked out perfectly. But you have to be willing to make that initial cut before that ever happens. So yeah, it's a very fun process, this thing we do. Different for everybody.
You gotta be mean to yourself a little bit.
Sorry?
You gotta be a little bit mean to yourself.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do. That is something I don't understand, and maybe I'm alone here, but I see a lot of writers talking about how, I don't know, basically they hate writing, and then they talk about they get to the editing process and they just loathe the entire thing, and I'm like, I guess I don't get it. I think maybe if you hate writing, perhaps that's not for you.
Yeah.
And it honestly, the editing process, how does making your book better not excite you?
Yeah.
The problem is admitting that you weren't as golden as you thought. That's a painful thing to go through if you're not prepared for it. You go, oh, I thought I was really good. No, I'm terrible. And then you wallow a little bit and, oh, I'm terrible. Instead of going, okay, I'm terrible. Let's get it passable now.
If it's a big overarching thing, that will beat me up more. If it's a small thing that I catch, I get this weird thrill. I'm like, oh, that's right. I caught that. And you cut it, or you trim it, or you make it better, and you look at it again, and now it's even better, and you're like, that's right. It's like this. I get a rush out of editing. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm right with you. But I do get the tediousness of it, and I get the, the frustration. And yeah, the surrender that it takes, for sure, and the admission that there are still things to learn.
The trick is to have water in your cup, but not be so full that you cannot be filled.
Mm-hmm. Classic. Yeah. I was going to say off that, but yeah, no, I can't understand writers who don't like writing. I can understand losing it for a period, or maybe even permanently. That's, hopefully something we never have to go through. But if you talk to someone who's just, had some sort of very bad experiences that have diminished their love of the game. Let's put it that way, right? That's one story. But if it's someone who just got into it knowing they hated it, that makes no sense to me at all. Like, why?
I don't get it either.
Yeah.
It's just writing is something you gotta love doing.
Yeah.
I honestly, anything that you're going to do, if you want to be successful at it, I think that you have to love doing it.
Yeah. But then you see, that's what's interesting to me is the flip side is a lot of people do careers that make them a lot of money, and they hate it, and they do it their whole life, and they do it well. And it's interesting to me because there are definitely career authors who seem to thrive despite, you can see like that they just don't have that fire in their eyes, and they talk about their books as if they're completely bored, and somehow they still sell because they do it really well. That fascinates me as a phenomena, because it is out there, and you think, okay, so what are the skills they learned to do what they do? But also,
I think that is the skill, though.
Maybe, yeah. I don't know. Yeah,
I think to be a perfect writer, I think you need to approach that level to where you're writing so good that now you're a little bit bored with it. You've mastered it so much. They're like, yeah, I know what to do. Like, it's not that big of a deal. Like, you're not gushing. You're like, yeah, I did this, did that. Yeah, it works.
That's fair.
Okay. That is totally fair to say, but I feel like I want to add that when whether it's music or art or writing, when you're doing something creative and you're passionate about it, the people who are taking in that entertainment know that. They can feel it in what you do.
Yes. Yeah. I think there's something in it that vanishes the moment your passion for it has slipped away. So it's not something you ever want to lose. And yeah, you'll attract a certain crowd with slop. But if you want to have a real impact and put out quality stories that will, have a meaningful, make a meaningful difference in someone's life, on any level, you're going to need the passion behind it too.
I'm just hoping it's around for another 100 years.
Right?
If what I write, is good enough that it doesn't get crazy famous, it doesn't become a bestseller, but it's around for a couple 100 years, and people know about it, and people read it, and my ancestors go, or my future what do you call it?
Descendants.
My descendants go, yeah, he wrote this book. It's pretty good. And it's still around. They're not like embarrassed, like, yeah, grandpa wrote this book. It's not very good.
Yeah. That's the number one fear for any self-published author is to be that guy, for sure.
There is something to that, though. I mean, like having created something and put it out there. You know what I mean? Like, whether you live or die in the next 30 days, that work is out there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You put your stamp on the world. You said, look, I did this.
Yep.
It's like there are a couple of ways to do that. You got writing, you got books, you got art, you got like painting, you got film. You can make something that moves when you look at it. Sculpture and all, things that people keep, people hang on to. But I think the book is probably the best one because it gets the most of your soul. It gets the most of your voice in it, like just plain your personality, even more than you do with art or with a sculpture or with video. Because I imagine there's a lot of YouTubers today who are going to have great grandkids going, yeah, my grandpa was really big, and here's his old videos where he's reviewing things and unboxing cartons of Apple products. You want to watch it? You want to watch my grandpa open this ancient Apple computer with me? That'll be a fun thing that our descendants will kind of have to wrestle with. Great granddad, I know all about him because he left 400 hours on YouTube of him unboxing things.
Right.
That's going to be interesting.
It's true. It's very true.
That, and a lot of things are being digitized now.
Yeah.
That's
So,
gonna add some shelf life.
yep.
Yeah, people recording themselves, TikTok and Twitter and all this
Yeah.
stuff. Like great granddad, you're going to be watch his whole life.
Imagine how cool. You bring up that awesome point there. Imagine if your parents had YouTube back in like the 60s.
Mm.
Okay, imagine being able to go back and watch your dad when he was your age talking about shit online. Wouldn't that be cool?
That'd be really neat.
Maybe.
I just came out of Star Wars. Here's what I thought about it. It was kind of new. Did some weird things. I don't know where it's gonna go.
Right? That would be awesome. I'd love to see
it's
that.
true. It's very true. Yeah, I mean that is one of the wonders of the age we're in right now. We're at a time where history is suddenly, pending. Well, no, I mean that's the thing is, history is now alive. Is now our descendants will be able to look back on this and see this conversation and learn a lot about all of us.
Yeah, true.
Like that's wild.
That's also another side to it. I think perfectionism it can be a good thing, but I think it's not that great of a thing because we want to leave things behind. We want to make those mistakes. Like I would have written 5 more books by now if I wasn't such a perfectionist. If I'd been so much time on this one thing, making it as good as possible, I would have had maybe that's a great thing. Maybe it'd be a mistake to have 5 things over the one thing. But I mean, we need to be willing to share things, leave parts of ourselves behind, not just hoard everything forever until we die. We have maybe 2 or 3 things, a few little bits of gold rather than a lot of gold. I mean, we gotta leave stuff behind.
Hell yeah.
It's something that's
is how we echo through eternity.
There you go. Yeah. Like a note on that is that in the publishing world, there is a push to take it much slower. And some of these things do just take a lot of time, like getting feedback, that you mentioned took, 5 months, I think you said, Mike, and the editing process, like some of these things take time naturally. And sometimes we maybe prolong them more than we should or have to. And, and as you get better, a lot of these things you do learn to do faster. Like on the writing side, you get into a rhythm and but some, like you said, sometimes you have to wait for that inspiration if you really want it to be quality. So there's trade-offs, and you find what works for you. And for some people, that's going to be a slower pace, and for some people, it's going to be faster. There's one author I know in our indie space, one of the top dogs, let's say, and I envy the heck out of him because he can write more than I think on my on a drug-induced day, I was able to write about 3/4 of what he does on a daily basis, literally. So I'm like, not a chance. That's never going to be me. I know my limitations, and I'm okay with them because I like the quality of what comes out in the time I put on a daily basis. And even that I do in sprints of probably about 3 months, and then I'll take maybe a week, 2, 3 off, assimilate, edit, and then I'll keep. You know what I mean? Like we all find what works for us, and then. But if you spend all your time hesitating, like you find what works for you, but then please do it. Don't experiment. If you never experiment, you'll never find that pattern that works for you, and then you'll never be able to actually leave that legacy, to put yourself out there and to make your mark on the world. So you have to at least do something now, and you have to put it out there for other people to scrutinize on some level, because the only way you really radically improve is to be tested in the furnace that is public opinion, which for a lot of people
never told that you're doing things wrong, you'd never know what to improve. You don't know what to change.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, which honestly, once you get used to it, is a lot of fun. Seeing that growth, so it feels like growth suddenly gets supercharged. You suddenly become a better version of yourself much faster than when you were just trying to do it all on your own.
I said something similar about my editors, and I came up with a phrase that I like to use in regards to editors. Editors are the polish that makes writers shine. Yeah.
Yeah, we are getting deep. It's late. Well, late at night for us. It's not that late for you. It's 9 o'clock.
Yeah, it's like 9 o'clock here.
Yeah.
I will get all philosophical on you guys. It's my thing.
Awesome. Love it. Yeah, well, like you said, there's a lot of philosophy and deep thought that appeared in your book too. I love that. I
Right.
love the blend of there's so much going on in this story. I can't wait to read it.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on it when you get done with it.
It's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about you guys. Well, I mean, poor Isaac, you're coming on to the tail end, but it sounds like
Right.
a long day too. So I don't know. I'm
Long day.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So let's.
You should be able to share that link with Isaac. I don't think I have a chat open with him.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. I'll do that.
Yeah, shoot it my way too.
Will do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. But anyways, let's call it a wrap before we take a nosedive into the deep philosophy at 12 a.m. because late night deep conversations are definitely a thing I fall into very easily. So.
Oh yeah.
Love
Talk about aliens and time travel.
Yeah. Oh, those are the days. Those were the days. Anyways, yeah. We all know what we're talking about. We're in good company here. Anyways, Mike, thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it was a total blast, and I think you've done your story a lot of credit with a talk like this.
Awesome.
So I'm impressed. I think anyone watching will be too. What we'll probably do is split this. So me just rambling for an hour beforehand, we can turn into a separate video maybe, and make sure this gets front and center with your picture on it, so people know this is a talk with you. We'll put your book links under and all that.
Yeah, that'd be great. You have those book links, right? Did I send you those? Okay, good.
Yeah, well, and I use your book link too from your profile, so we have.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll make sure it's
awesome.
there. Yeah. So
Awesome.
And anyways, thank you so much, and have an awesome night. Anyone still watching? I don't know how many are still live. I think we're down back to normal numbers on YouTube.
I think we lost a couple in that storm.
It's so funny. Anyways, so to everyone watching the replay, thank you. Thank you so much, and be sure to give Mike a follow wherever you can. You can find him on Idiosyncrasy. You can find him on X primarily, right?
At Nunneley Mike.
Yeah, perfect. All your links are there too. So we'll have both, and we'll have your X link as well. We do already, and we'll have it here too.
Very nice.
Yeah, so check out the description if you want to follow Mike, and otherwise, and go buy his book because it sounds amazing. So please do. And beyond that, give us a like and a follow and all that good stuff. You all probably already know where to find us on X. Nice and easy. So thank you everyone for watching. Thank you, Mike, again for being on with the two of us. This was a blast. I think you've now officially, well, I guess including my portion, I think we're now officially, this is the longest show we've done. So
nice.
So very good. Yeah. Anyways, it was an absolute pleasure. Everyone have an awesome night, and we will see you next time. Cheers.
Live long and prosper.